Jak integrować migrantów z
Migrants. It's
lokalną
about how to
społecznością.
integrate migrants with local
Jakbyśmy
community.
mogli prosić prezentację. Łukasz Dąbrówka
Łukasz
I Tomasz Hejzer.
Dąbrówka
Dzień dobry
and
Państwu,
Tomasz
witamy ze
Seifert.
studia w Poznaniu.
Welcome from the studio in
Drodzy
Poznań.
Państwo,
Ladies and gentlemen,
tematyka
the topic of
migrantów i ich
migrants
integracji z lokalną
and their integration
społecznością
with local
staje się w ostatnich
community
latach
is
szczególnie ważnym i
becoming truly
interesującym
important topic in recent
dla
years
naszych
and
doświadczeń
a
w
truly
samorządzie
interesting one for our
tematów.
experiences in
Dlatego
our
też z przyjemnością będziemy
self-government.
mieli okazję dzisiaj
That is why
posłuchać
today we'll have a
kwestii związanych
pleasure
z
to
tym,
listen
jak
to
to wygląda w perspektywie doświadczeń
these topics
szwajcarskich.
and the experiences from
Dzisiejszy
Switzerland.
webinar i Forum
This
Rozwoju Lokalnego
webinar
jest
and the
realizowane
Forum of Local
przez doradców
Development is
ZNP w
organized
ramach
by
projektu
the
komponentu
ZMP
predefiniowanego
advisors as a
Wsparcie w
part of the
efektywnym wykorzystaniu
component of effective use
szwajcarsko-polskiego
of
programu współpracy w
Polish-Swiss
ramach
cooperation
polsko-szwajcarskiego
program
programu
within the
rozwoju miast, dofinansowanego
Polish-Swiss
przez
development
fundusze
programs
szwajcarskie
of the cities
wspierające
financed by the
zmniejszenie
Swiss
różnic gospodarczych
funds
i społecznych w Unii
supporting
Europejskiej i budżetu
eliminating
państwa.
differences
Nasze
in income level
fora
between cities
są
and states.
tradycyjnie
Our
tłumaczone
forums
na
are
polski język
traditionally
migowy. Są z
interpreted
nami
into Polish Sign
tłumacze
Language. That
polskiego
is why we have the
języka
Polish
migowego.
Sign Language with us today.
Już tradycyjnie cały czas
Traditionally,
podczas spotkania mamy
during the
opiekę
whole
techniczną Łukasza Kozaka,
meeting,
Krzysztofa Baczyńskiego.
we have
Ci z Państwa,
a
którzy
technical
dołączają do nas
support in the
pierwszy
form of
raz,
Łukasz,
prosimy
and those who
ewentualnie
join us
o
for the
zanotowanie
first
sobie
time,
jakiegoś numeru
please
kontaktowego. Były
note
jakieś kłopoty
the
z połączeniem
contact
w
number
trakcie,
if you
to
had
zawsze można
experienced any
tutaj z tego
connection
wsparcia
problems, then
skorzystać.
you may use
Tomku, w
this
takim
support.
razie no,
So,
doświadczenia i
Tomek,
migracja, ważny
now the
temat. Co nas czeka?
experiences, the
Jakie
migrants is an
będą,
important
czego możemy
topic.
się
What
spodziewać?
awaits
Bardzo
us? What
szczególnie
can
w
we
Polsce,
expect?
gdzie w ostatnich
Especially in
latach
Poland, where
mamy
in
do czynienia z
recent
bardzo
years we are
dynamicznym
dealing with a
wzrostem
very
liczby
dynamic
migrantów,
growth
którzy
of the
przyjeżdżają
amount
do
of
naszego kraju w
migrants
różnych celach.
coming to our
I
countries for
doświadczenia szwajcarskie
various
jest dla nas bardzo
purposes.
cenną
And this
okazją,
is a
możliwością
very
zobaczenia,
precious
jak
chance
wygląda
to
polityka migracyjna w
experience what
kraju, w
the
którym od lat
migration policy
jest
looks like in
miejscem
a
przyjazdu
country that
bardzo
for
wielu
years
osób z
has
różnych
become a
stron
place
świata,
of
którzy stają się
arrival
częścią
for
lokalnej
many
społeczności.
individuals
I
from
właśnie
all around the
będziemy
world
dzisiaj mówić
who
o
are
zarządzaniu
becoming part of the
migracją,
local
patrząc
communities.
jak na
Now we'll
poziomie
be dealing
lokalnym,
with the
jak władze
migration,
miasta
and
włączają
we'd like
migrantów w
to
lokalną
see
społeczność.
how the
Przyjrzymy się temu, jak to
cities are
wygląda z
adding
perspektywy
migrants to the local
mniejszych
Tak,
communities, and
dokładnie.
we'll see what it looks like from
Odwiedzimy
the
dwa
point of
miasta,
view of
miasto
small
Bielgien
and
oraz miasto
medium-sized communities.
Bazylea.
We'll
Spotkamy się z osobami, które
have a
pracują w tych
look what it
miastach,
looks
które
like in
podzielą się z
Basel,
nami
a
kwestiami,
medium-sized
jak budują
city,
dialog
and
międzykulturowy,
they'll tell us
jak
about how
organizują
they
dzielnice
construct the
integracyjne,
intercultural
jakie
dialogue,
narzędzia,
how they
instrumenty władze lokalne próbują
construct
stosować,
the
aby lepiej
integration
połączyć
tools
mieszkańców,
to combine
mieszkańców z
the new
migrantami.
migrants with the
Natomiast
local
na sam
communities in a
koniec
better way.
przyjrzyjmy
And
się
in the end,
perspektywie
we'll
gospodarczej,
look
jak
at
włączyć
the
migrantów w
financial
lokalny rynek
perspective. It's
pracy,
about how to
a na samym
integrate them in the
początku spojrzymy na
local
kwestię
labor
migracji
market.
z
And in the end, we'll
perspektywy
have a look
makro,
at the migration
czyli
from a macro
zapoznamy się z
level.
założeniami
So we'll
polityki
get
migracyjnej na
encounter
poziomie rządu
with the
federalnego. Czyli
migration
z
policy
tego
on the
szerokiego spojrzenia
federation
zejdziemy na poziom lokalny,
government
a
level.
zakończymy
So
kwestiami
we'll start with
gospodarczymi,
local
gdzie,
level
co
when
ważne,
we end up with
zobaczymy,
the
w jaki sposób współpraca,
economy
skoordynowana
issues,
współpraca
and
władz
we'll
federalnych,
see how
władz
the
lokalnych,
cooperation of
organizacji
federation, federal
pozarządowych, przedsiębiorców
government, and
i mieszkańców
self-governments, local
pozwala
self-governments,
włączyć migrantów w lokalny rynek pracy.
local
Już to jest kolejne
inhabitants and
forum rozwoju
communities
lokalnego,
helps to
które tak jak
integrate
słucham
the
tego,
migrants.
co
Our local
tutaj nas będzie
forum
czekało, pokazuje nam taki
tells
wielopoziomowy
us a
poziom
multi-level,
oddziaływania. Dlatego,
multi-layer
Szanowni Państwo, rozpoczynajmy.
construct.
Prosimy o
Let's
powitanie
start.
uczestników i
Let's
wprowadzenie do
welcome the
seminarium.
participants, and let's
Jest
see
z
what's the
nami pani
introduction to the
Małgorzata
seminar.
Blińska,
We have
główny
Małgorzata
specjalista Wydziału
Oblińska
Programów
with us,
Pomocowych i
the
Projektów
main
Rozwoju
specialist
Instytucjonalnego
for
Departamentu Programów
development
Pomocowych
and support
Ministerstwa
programs
Funduszy i
from the
Polityki
Ministry
Regionalnej.
of
Następnie
Finances and
poprosimy
Regional
i oddamy
Policy,
głos
and then we'll give
naszym
the
partnerom
floor
Zenko
to
UPA
our
Plan.
partners,
Jest
Zenko
w imieniu ich
Plan,
Nina
who
Dausz,
is,
zastępca
and
kierownika
also
projektu
Nina Dausch,
Partnera
who's the
Szwajcarskiego Instrumentu
deputy
Wsparcia,
representative of the
przedstawi
Swiss
wprowadzenie.
support program.
I na
She'll
sam
give us an
koniec
introduction, and in
Andrzej
the very end,
Porawski,
Andrzej
dyrektor Biura
Borawski, the
Związku
director
Miast
of
Polskich.
the
Pani
Association of
Małgorzato,
Polish Cities.
prosimy.
Małgorzata, please.
Dzień dobry.
Welcome
Witam serdecznie uczestników
to all the
kolejnego
participants of the
seminarium w
next
ramach Forum
seminar
Rozwoju
as a part
Lokalnego.
of the Forum of
W
Local
imieniu
Development
Ministerstwa Funduszy i
on
Polityki
behalf of the
Regionalnej
Ministry
oraz
of
Dyrekcji Departamentu
Development
Programów
Funds and Regional
Pomocowych,
Policy and the
zwłaszcza
Department of
obecnej
Aid
tutaj pani
Programs,
dyrektor
especially
Małgorzaty
Director
Zalewskiej.
Małgorzata Zalewska.
Od roku
For a
moderowane
year
przez
now,
Związek Miast Polskich
the
spotkania w gronie przedstawicieli
moderate
samorządów
meetings
terytorialnych,
among
departamentów
representatives of local
ministerstw,
governments,
ekspertów
departments of ministries and experts
dotyczące bardzo
on
ważnych
a
zagadnień
very important
polityki rozwoju
series of
lokalnego
topics of
odbywają się
local
pod
development.
szyldem
They are being
szwajcarsko-polskiego
organized under the
programu współpracy
Swiss-Polish cooperation program
i doświadczeń
and their
miast
experiences and the
szwajcarskich.
experiences of the
Witam
Swiss
wśród
cities.
uczestników
Welcome
przedstawicieli
among
miast
the
średnich,
participants the
które aplikowały do
representatives of
polsko-szwajcarskiego
medium-sized
programu rozwoju miast. W tej chwili
cities
trwa
who applied for the
weryfikacja 19
participation in
kompletnych
this association.
propozycji
Now we are
projektów
verifying
dopracowanych
19
na drugim i ostatnim już
project
etapie
drafts that
aplikowania do
are at the
programu.
last stage of
Jesteśmy już
applying
bardzo
for the
blisko
program. We are now very
podpisania
close to
umów o
signing
dofinansowanie i
the
rozpoczęcia
financing
wdrażania.
agreements and
Forum
starting the
Rozwoju
implementation.
Lokalnego
The Forum of Local
umożliwia
Development
debatę
allows a debate
samorządom
of
terytorialnym
local
z rządem, z
self-governments with
ekspertami
the government, with
oraz
experts,
prezentację
and the
dobrych praktyk.
presentations of good practices.
Szczególnie cenimy tutaj
We are
doświadczenie naszego
especially
szwajcarskiego
appreciating the
partnera,
experience of our Swiss partner,
konsorcjum
the
ENCO Urba
consortium
Plan,
MCO
z
Urba
którym
Plan,
współpracujemy
who
już prawie od
with we've been
roku
cooperating for a
i
year
który
now,
potrafi dostarczyć
who
nam
is
ciekawych
able to deliver
szwajcarskich
really
praktyk.
interesting
W
Swiss
listopadzie dwie
practices.
grupy
In
samorządowców
November,
udały
two
się
groups
na
of
wizyty studyjne
self-government
do miast
representatives
szwajcarskich,
embarked on
które to
a
miasta
study
pozwoliły,
visit to
które to
Swiss
wizyty
cities,
właściwie
and these
pozwoliły
visits
zapoznać
allowed
się
us
z
to get
rozwiązaniami
acquainted with the
miast
solutions of
szwajcarskich i
Swiss cities
przybliżyć nam
and to
koncepcje
bring
tam
the concept
zbadane
of
w takich
those
obszarach
projects developed
tematycznych,
that closer to
które
us.
występują właśnie
The
w tym
teams
polsko-szwajcarskim programie
represented
rozwoju miast.
in the
Zapoznaliśmy się
Polish
tam
and Swiss
między innymi z
development have
kwestiami
been
migracji
shown to us. We got
migrantów,
acquainted
a
with the
dzisiaj
issues related to the
szwajcarscy eksperci
integration of migrants, and
przyjeżdżają
today
do
Swiss
nas,
experts are
aby
visiting
pomóc
us
znaleźć
to
nam
help us to
odpowiedź na
find the
pytanie,
answer to the
jak
question
integrować
how to
migrantów z
integrate
lokalną
migrants with
społecznością.
local communities.
Wiemy już, że w
We
Szwajcarii
already know
rozwiązania powstają na
that Swiss
poziomie
solutions are
federalnym,
developed on
dlatego
a
gościmy
federal
dziś
level. That
przedstawiciela
is why we're
sekretariatu
hosting
stanu do spraw migracji
the
na poziomie
representative of the
kantonów,
Secretary
miast i
of
poszczególnych
State on
projektów.
migration, and they also
Ciekawych refleksji
developing
dostarcza
different projects on
obserwacja,
canton
jak te
levels.
poziomy
It is very
administracji ze
good to
sobą
observe how
współpracują
these
i
level of
dzielą się
administrations are
kompetencjami. Życzę
cooperating and
Państwu
sharing their
ciekawych
experiences.
przemyśleń, inspiracji i dociekliwości.
I hope you
Proszę
have a
zadawać
very
pytania
thoughtful
i poznawać
participations,
nowe
and I
rozwiązania.
ask you for
Dziękuję bardzo.
patience. Please get acquainted with the programs, with the new solutions. Thank you very much.
So I assume that I will continue. So dzień dobry also from our side. I'd also like to warmly welcome you to today's Local Development Forum on Migration and Integration. Yeah, it's great to have so many of you here again. So Ms. Lublinska and also Lukasz and Tomasz already introduced the framework of our involvement in the project and in the organization of the LDFs. But to briefly introduce myself, so my name is Nina Dorsch, and I'm representing the Swiss Support Measure Partner today. We are working together with APC, among others, to transfer Swiss knowledge to Polish cities. So you know best that migration has become a very concrete topic, a very concrete reality for many municipalities in Poland over the recent years. And particularly because currently a lot of people are arriving from Ukraine, and you are facing also new challenges and have to deal with practical questions, just that housing, access to work, social inclusion, community cohesion, and so on. So we in Switzerland are facing similar challenges, and we have quite some experiences in dealing with this topic also on the local level. We will present, or our experts will present a range of approaches and good practices that have already implemented and support integration in everyday life. The speakers have also been already introduced briefly, so I will just go into a little more detail. So our first speaker will be Marc Engler. He is from the Swiss State Secretariat for Migration and will provide kind of a review, an overview of the national migration situation in Switzerland. And he will also introduce the Swiss integration agenda and the strategic framework. The second speaker will be Natasha Pité from the city of Biel, and she will present how integration is implemented at municipal level. So she will also focus on strategic objectives and organizational structures. The third speaker will be Tina Barbot from the canton of Basel-Stadt, and she will show how social integration and anti-racism programs are implemented in the canton of Basel-Stadt, and how equality, diversity, and inclusion policies are translated into practical measures at cantonal level. Last but not least, Santi Signa will address the topic of economic integration. So she will talk about how to bridge labor market needs and migrant integration. She will share some insights on how cities, organization, and employers can be linked to support migrants' sustainable economic participation. So we wish you an inspiring and fruitful day of a lot of ideas and discussions. Thank you very much.
Kolejnym seminarium z cyklu Forum Rozwoju Lokalnego
Welcome to the seminar on local development,
pracy
organized in a cooperation
Szwajcarią.
with Switzerland.
Dzisiejszym tematem seminarium
Today's
jest
topic
zarządzanie
is going to be the
zjawiskiem migracji.
management of the
Wiemy, że
phenomenon of
Szwajcaria ma
migration. We know
wstępne
that
bardzo ciekawe
Switzerland has
doświadczenia,
really valuable
które są
experiences,
dla nas bardzo pouczające.
very
Dlatego chętnie
educational to
wysłuchamy
us. That is why we are very willing to
opisów tego,
listen
co robi się w
to
Szwajcarii, zarówno na szczeblu
what is
centralnym,
done
jak i
in
na
Switzerland
szczeblach
on a
zdecentralizowanych.
central and local level.
W Polsce sytuację mamy trochę bardziej
In Poland, the situation is
przez całe lata nie
easier
mieliśmy
because for years we did
dobrze
not
zbudowanej
have
nowoczesnej
well-developed
polityki migracyjnej
migration policy
na szczeblu krajowym.
on a national level.
Niektóre miasta,
Some cities,
zwłaszcza te, które,
especially
dla
those
których zjawisko
for whom
przybywania
this
migrantów,
phenomenon of welcoming migrants
uczestniczenia w lokalnym życiu
and
stawało się
participation in the
ważne.
local life have
Tymi
become
migrantami
really
nie
relevant.
tylko migranci ekonomiczni, ale także na przykład studenci w wielu ośrodkach akademickich w Polsce.
Also in many universities,
Tysiące
there are thousands of foreign
Też w
students.
ostatnich 3 latach uchodźcy
For the last 3 years,
to
the
też nowe
migrants
zagadnienie, z którym się
have
mierzymy.
become a new topic we're facing.
I niektóre miasta próbowały
I
zbudować
mean, the
swoje
refugees,
lokalne
sorry. Some
polityki
cities try
migracyjne.
to
Pionierem
create their own
był
local
Gdańsk,
migration policies,
dzielił się tymi
like
doświadczeniami
Gdańsk,
z innymi
who've been
miastami.
sharing its
Pobudzał
experiences
inne
with
miasta
other cities,
także do
who's been also
uwzględniania
invigorating
tego
other
problemu
cities to
albo w
point
postaci
out this
pewnych,
problem in a form of
założeń lokalnej polityki migracyjnej,
local
albo przynajmniej w
policies
stosownych rozdziałach
for
strategii rozwoju.
migration or appropriate
Także my jesteśmy
chapters
na
on
etapie
migration
wciąż
policy.
jeszcze
So we're still
uczenia
at
się,
the
jak
stage
sobie z tymi
of
zjawiskami radzić, jak
trying
zarządzać.
of dealing with the
Przyjmowaniem
question how to manage this
migrantów we naszych
phenomenon.
społecznościach
This is
lokalnych.
about the
No i tutaj
reception of migrants
doświadczenia
in our local
szwajcarskie
communities,
będą na pewno
and
bardzo
Swiss
przydatne.
experiences are definitely going to be very useful.
Burmistrzowie uczestniczą wyjazdach studyjnych do
And
Szwajcarii,
we are very often
ludzie
participating
wracają
in
to
study
z
visits
wrażeniem,
in Switzerland, and those
mijają
who
różne
went there are always
aspekty
very
życia lokalnego jako niezwykle
amazed
pouczające.
by how
Ciesząc się
the
na ten
local
projekt i na
living
potencjalne
aspects have been
korzyści,
solved, and they
jakie z niego będą
are
płynąć w skali ogólnej.
very
Wyrażam
interested
nadzieję,
in
że
how
również
these
w tym
projects
temacie
can have
dowiemy się
a
więcej, czego
influence
życzę
on a general
uczestnikom dzisiejszego seminarium.
scale. And I hope you also get fruitful information from this seminar today.
Bardzo dziękujemy za przywitanie.
Thank you very
Przepraszamy
much
za
for
pewne
your
problemy techniczne,
welcoming
ale to
words.
jest
Sorry for some technical
transmisja
problems,
online od
but
kilku
this is an
miejsc,
online transmission from
i z Poznania,
a couple of
i ze
places.
Szwajcarii, ale kolegom udało się to
But
przeskoczyć.
our
Mam nadzieję, że
colleagues
to
managed
nie
to deal
zakłóciło
with the
Państwu
topic, and I
możliwości
hope it did
wysłuchania
not
naszych gości. Bardzo
hinder
dziękujemy
you
za
to listen
przywitanie
to this
dzisiejszego uczestników
message.
seminarium. Proszę
So,
Państwa, nim przejdziemy
ladies and
do
gentlemen,
pierwszego
before we
mówcy,
go over to
jedna
the first
kwestia jeszcze
speaker,
techniczna,
one
informacyjnie.
important technical issue.
Nasi paneliści są otwarci na
Our
Państwa pytania.
panelists are open for your questions.
Prosimy zadawać pytania na
Ask
czacie.
them
Zoom ma tą
in the
funkcję czatu.
chat
Można używać
function
języka polskiego,
in
nawet
Zoom.
zachęcamy
You
do
can
tego.
ask
My te
in
pytania
Polish. We
będziemy
even
tłumaczyć i
encourage to
przekazywać
do that.
bezpośrednio
We'll
naszym
be
panelistom i odpowiednio potem
transferring the
zamieszczać w
questions to
odpowiedzi.
the
Oczywiście
speakers
po
directly, and
każdej
then
prezentacji będzie czas
show you the
na zdawanie
answers. After
pytań
each and
i
every presentation, there will
odczytywanie z
be
czatu,
time
więc
for
bardzo prosimy o
asking
wykorzystywanie
questions
tej
and
okazji.
reading the
I
questions in
jeszcze
the
jedna
chat window.
informacja, nasz pierwszy
One more
gość,
important
pan
information.
Mark
Our
Engler,
first guest,
będzie z nami
Mark
kilka w czasie
Engler,
swojej
will
prezentacji. Gdyby
only
Państwo
be
chcieli
with
mieć od
us
niego
during the
jakiekolwiek
presentation.
zapytania,
So
to
if you
zachęcamy,
have
aby
any
w trakcie jego
questions or
prezentacji
queries,
wpisywać je na
please
czacie,
ask
a
those
my tutaj
questions
ze
during the
studia odczytamy te
presentation,
pytania w końcu jego
and we'll
prezentacji i
read them out
poprosimy
in
o
the studio,
odpowiedzi.
and we're asked
Tak
for
więc czat
answers.
jako miejsce dawania pytań,
So
do
chat
czego
is the place
zachęcamy.
to ask
Proszę
questions.
Państwa,
I
nasz
encourage you
pierwszy
strongly to ask
prezenter, pan
questions.
Mark
Our
Engler,
first
członek
speaker,
kadry
Mr. Mark
kierowniczej
Engler,
Sekretariatu Stanu do
the
Spraw Imigracji,
member of
osoba z bardzo bogatym
the advisor of the
doświadczeniem
State
w
Secretary of
służbie
Migration, a
dyplomatycznej,
person
w
with a
pracy
lot of
administracji
experience in
federalnej.
diplomatic
Między
and
innymi był doradcą w
administrative work
zakresie
in the
międzynarodowej
Federation. He's been
współpracy
advisor
migracyjnej.
on
Odpowiadał także
migration
za
policy, and he's been
doradztwo
responsible
przy
for
dwustronnych rozmowach
advising
o wdrażaniu umowy między Szwajcarią a Unią Europejską
bilateral
o swobodnym przepływie
talks
osób.
between Switzerland and
Dzisiaj
EU
jest
on
doradcą
migrants,
sekretarza
and today
stanu
he's an
w
advisor of the
zakresie migracji.
State
Podzieli
Secretary
się z
for
nami
Migration,
swoją
and
wiedzą
he'll
na
share
temat
his
współczesnej
knowledge
polityki
about
migracyjnej
modern
Szwajcarii.
migration
Powie o
policy in
jej
Switzerland. He
uwarunkowaniach,
will tell
przedstawi
about
nam
its
podejście
the
rządu
conditions in
federalnego
which it's being
do
applied,
kwestii
and he'll
migracji
also
i
show
integracji.
us the approach of the federal government
Mark,
to
you have
the
the
issues
floor.
of
The
migration.
time is yours.
Mark, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Dzień dobry, good morning, everybody. I hope you can all hear me well. I will start by putting my presentation on the screen, and then we'll go through the slides together. Okay. I hope you can see my presentation. Otherwise, just give me a sign. But so I have already been introduced, so I will not say that much about my person anymore. I work for the State Secretariat for Migration in Bern, which is like the office at a federal level in Switzerland that covers all aspects of migration. So integration is one aspect of those different aspects, and a very important one, of course. But we at the SEM, we also take care of all the other aspects. So the whole asylum procedure is also at the SEM. The procedures for work permits, residence permits, naturalization for people who become Swiss citizens, all that it happens at the SEM, at the federal level. And so as you can imagine, it is a very big office. We have like 1,300 staff all over Switzerland, and also a very broad and diverse office where covering many different topics, which are all related to migration. This as a quick introduction. I will also in my presentation today not specifically focus on integration. You will hear a lot more about that later on, and also you will gain much more practical insights from my colleagues at the cantonal and communal level, because as I will tell you soon, it's at those levels that most of the concrete work regarding integration actually happens. So I will set the framework, general migration policy of Switzerland, some facts and figures, the role of the cities and cantons in a very broad sense, and then of course I'll be open to questions and discussions. Okay, this is a chart I like to show a lot also when I do presentations inside Switzerland. It serves as a reminder to us that, you know, whatever migration policy we are running or whatever the political discussions of the day are, in the end, if you look at the long-term trends, immigration to Switzerland has always mostly been determined by the needs of the economy. I think that is a constant that we can, in Switzerland, we clearly see. So you have the orange chart is the labor immigration, so people who came specifically to work in Switzerland. And the blue line is the total immigration. And you can see, of course, there's a clear coherence between the two lines. So basically, it is and always has been the demand of the Swiss economy that has been driving immigration to Switzerland more than any other factor, I would say. That's just something that I think goes for many countries. There's probably not many economically successful countries in the world that are not at the same time countries of immigration. It is also true that Switzerland has for a long time been a country of emigration, right up to like the early 20th century or late 19th century. A lot of Swiss actually emigrated. Switzerland was not doing well at the time. And as a matter of fact, quite a few people from Switzerland actually also emigrated to Poland at the time. I think there's a tradition of Swiss confectioners that emigrated from Graubünden, for example, to Poland and worked there. So there's a long history of migration also between Poland and Switzerland. Now, if we look at the situation today, where do people in Switzerland, for immigrants in Switzerland, come from? And here also, unlike what you might think if you listen to the political discussion in Switzerland, most immigrants actually come from our neighbors. And I mean by our neighbors, I mean the immediate neighbors, but also the wider European area of free movement of persons. So here you can see the bigger the circle, the more citizens from the countries, from those countries we have living in Switzerland on a permanent basis. And you can see it's Italy, it's Germany, it's France, Portugal, and also the rest of the EU EFTA area, and that's a lot more than people from outside. So Switzerland is clearly part of the of the European migration system, of the European area of free movement. And this actually goes both ways. So there's also many Swiss living outside of Switzerland. Actually, the figure is that about 11% of Swiss citizens live outside of Switzerland, which is a very high percentage. I think, for example, the Philippines is around 10%. So we actually still are a country that is also a country of emigration. So it's a two-way street. Most Swiss actually live abroad, actually live in France, the biggest community of Swiss abroad. This is also something that I think is important to keep in mind. Now, you don't have to be able to read all the different categories there. The main message, again, is where do people come from and when they come to Switzerland, and why do they come to Switzerland? So on the left side, the blue is where people come from. You can see the thick line coming from the top there is EU EFTA. So this confirms what you have seen on the map before. Immigration to Switzerland is above all immigration from the EU and the EFTA countries, and also immigration to those countries. Immigration from third countries outside EU EFTA is a lot less. That is also due, of course, to the legal setup of our immigration system. I will come to that in a minute. On the right-hand side, and this you can see in yellow, you can see the reasons why people come to Switzerland. Again, this confirms also the chart I showed you at the very beginning. The widest bar there at the top is labor market. So people coming for work. The second biggest category just below is family reunion. This, of course, is very closely linked to the first category. So especially people coming from EU countries to work in Switzerland have the right to bring their families, and they do so, rightly so. And these family members then count as family reunion. It is important to say that, of course, many of those family members then also work in Switzerland. The third and the fourth category is education, training, studying in Switzerland. And then other categories, everything else basically makes up a small percentage of the total immigration. So I think just to keep in mind, in Switzerland, immigration is mostly EU immigration, and it mostly happens for work. Now, just with the reference to the national debates we have here in Switzerland and probably also in other countries, the political debate regarding immigration, migration in general often has a lot to do with there's a lot of talk about asylum. And if you listen to those positions, those political statements, you could be led to think that immigration is actually mostly an asylum immigration, people coming through the asylum system. And what I'm showing you here is, again, that actually the asylum system accounts for only a very small part of total immigration to Switzerland. It's actually around 7%. So about 7% of people who come and live in Switzerland on a permanent basis, have come through the asylum system. So again, immigration into Switzerland, even though asylum claims have been relatively high in recent years, it does not make up a big part of immigration into Switzerland. So the biggest part of immigration into Switzerland happens through this agreement, happens through the left side here, EU EFTA citizens, the free movement of persons. So since I think 1992 or something, it's since about the turn of the millennium, it's about 2000 now, we have a bilateral agreement with the EU that provides for free movement of persons between Switzerland and the EU. For work, but also for other reasons. If you can if you can show that you have the financial means to sustain your stay in Switzerland, and that makes up for the large chunk of immigration to Switzerland. Third countries is really, as enshrined in the law, is only complementary. So, for example, specialists from India, IT, or from the US or other countries outside, and the UK now also, other countries from outside the EU only are admitted to the Swiss labor market if there is a shortage within the European labor market. So employers would have to prove that they have been searching to fill the position within Switzerland and also within the EU area of free movement. And if that is not possible, then they can apply for a permit for a specialist from third countries. So naturally, that means that admission from third countries is a lot lower than the number of people using the channel of free movement from the EU. Even though it makes up just for a small percentage of the immigration, I would still like to say a few words on the asylum system, just to give you some context. This system has been overhauled, has been reformed in 2019 to make it a lot quicker. And here there is a clear link also to the integration policy. because the idea behind this, and often, of course, as you will understand, people coming through the asylum system are coming from cultural and geographical contexts that are often much further away from Switzerland. Ukraine is probably an exception to the rule there, but I mean, we have countries of origin from all over, from Africa, from Asia. Afghanistan is an important country of origin, for example, and so the obstacles to really integrate into Swiss society are, of course, often more important than for someone coming from another European country. And the idea behind the whole asylum system is to have fair and correct decisions, but to come to those decisions quickly. So the whole goal now of the procedure of the reform was to accelerate asylum procedures to have within a couple of months, to have a final decision within a couple of months, so that people know if they can stay or if they will have to leave again. And if they can stay, they immediately can get a benefit of integration measures within the scope of the Swiss integration agenda, which I'm sure you will hear more about later on. But I think this is really a win-win for everybody. The person who applies for asylum knows more quickly if their application is successful or not. This reduces the time that people are in limbo. It's also a benefit for the authorities, because the longer people are in limbo, while they are in limbo, they cannot work, they cannot start to integrate into society. And the day the decision comes, if it comes late, if it's a positive decision, then a lot of valuable time for integration will have been lost. If it's a negative decision, it will be much harder for the people concerned to then basically pack up and leave again, which they then would have to. So I think having quick procedures is in everyone's interest. And the two basic principles behind this is really that those who are in need of protection, they should receive, everyone should receive a decision quickly. Those who are in need of protection should then immediately be able to start their integration process, and they will be actively supported in this. And people who do not need the protection of Switzerland, they must also leave Switzerland quite quickly once they have received the final negative decision. I think I will leave it with that. Oh, sorry, here's the Polish version. I'll let you read that. The next slide. Now we come to the internal organization of Switzerland, and this is very important to understand how the Swiss migration system works. Here you see a map of all the cantons with the flags of the cantons, and this is just to symbolize that the cantons play a very, very important role in Switzerland in general, but especially in the Swiss migration system. So in many areas, it is actually the cantons that have the competence to decide on permits, if permits are given or not. Maybe the federal government has to confirm those decisions, but in many cases, it's really the cantons that decide what their needs are. For example, labor market decisions. If a labor market permit is granted, it is above all the cantonal migration authority that decides if in their local cantonal labor market there is a need for this person, or if that need can be filled through local or EU citizens. So it's very important to understand that we, as the federal government, we have limited powers, and as enshrined in the constitution, as enshrined in the migration laws, and in many areas the cantons are actually quite sovereign in the decisions on migration that they take. So integration, you will hear more about that. I will talk about it on a later slide, but this is really a basic principle important to understand. So there's a lot of coordination happening also between the federal government and the cantons to make sure we are all on the same page regarding the policy that we choose for Switzerland. A specific aspect of the asylum system is that here it is the government, the federal government, that runs the entire asylum procedure. So that is one area that has been centralized, that the asylum decisions are always taken at the federal level. But the cantons also play a very important role there. First of all, you can see that the cantons have grouped together into asylum regions, and every one of those regions has several federal asylum centers where the federal procedures actually happen, where people are housed. And so there is a need for infrastructure in the cantons, in the communes. And of course, that is also something that we as the federal government have to define together with the cantons and the communes where those infrastructures are. On top of that, there are lots of cantonal and communal infrastructures to house asylum seekers because, of course, everyone needs a place, needs a bed, needs a roof over their head, needs food, needs education. Children have to go to school, and a lot of that the federal government houses people for the initial phase within the federal structures, but as soon as there is a positive decision, especially and sometimes even before, people go into the cantons and the communes have to take charge of them. So there's a very important responsibility there of the cantonal and commune levels within the Swiss asylum system. Again, we're all in this together. All three levels of government are in this together. Now to finish off already, I would come to to integration specifically, because I think this will be the topic for the rest of your seminar. Integration, again, is something that is a shared responsibility between the three levels of government, actually. I will quickly, if it's okay, I just received a notification that there's a question. If it's okay, I would quickly finish my presentation and then I will take the questions. So the Confederation, that is also typical for other areas, but in migration policy, the federal government sets the legal framework, ensures overall coherence of integration policy across Switzerland, and then provides also financial support to the cantons for implementing the national framework, and of course then monitors the achievement of the objectives and the finances. But we do not define every detail of the integration programs on the ground. That mostly happens within the cantonal integration programs, which again allows for flexibility for cantonal particularities. And it's also the cantons above all that then coordinate with their cities and municipalities. And it's also not organized in the same way in every canton. So I think in some cantons, integration happens mostly directly through the cantonal authorities. In other cantons, it is something that has been delegated to the commune, to the municipalities. So again, every canton has the freedom to kind of choose the system that works best for the local situation on the ground. What are the basic principles that are enshrined in the law regarding integration? So integration, according to the Swiss law on migration and integration, basically means that the immigrant population and the local population and the people who have been living in Switzerland before, of which many are also descendants of immigrants, is that people should live together on the basis of the values of the Swiss constitution. That is like the basic principle. The law also defines that integration should happen it should happen in an economic sense. People should try to and be able to enter into the labor market. But it should also happen at a social and cultural level. So this is, of course, a long way from the guest worker programs of the 1950s and 60s, where the basic idea was people come and work and then leave again, but we don't really want to see much of them while they're here. So that is a complete change of paradigm here that we are seeing, and today the law actually explicitly recognizes that there is the need and also the for an integration process, not only in an economic sense but also in a social and cultural sense. The law also defines, and this is something also that I find also interesting, integration, successful integration requires a willingness to integrate on behalf of the migrant population, yes, but it also requires an openness of the local population to accept immigration and to be ready to also make a step towards the immigrant population and people coming that are new to the neighborhood, for example. The last principle I'm going to mention is that integration should happen within the standard structures. So for an example, so people go to the regular schools. We do not, we don't have a system of migrant schools as a basic principle. Going to school is mandatory. That mostly happens in public schools in Switzerland, and also the children of migrants go to the same public schools as everyone else. And this is the basic principle, and only where there is obviously where there are gaps that can't be filled in the regular structures, there is room for specific programs to support the integration of migrants. And I think that is where, of course, the programs that you will hear more about at the city level are very, very important. I will now finish my presentation and I will take the questions. I will go back to Zoom.
Dziękujemy, Marku. Są dwa pytania, jedno po angielsku, jedno po polsku.
Thank you, Mark. We have two questions. One is in English, one is in Polish. The Polish one has already been answered. If you could please answer the question on the procedure when the migrant has to go back to a foreign country, for example, to Germany, and in Germany they are not granted asylum. What happens then?
Yes, okay. So it is there's two situations here that are possible. So if someone comes to Switzerland and claims asylum and says, I would like to have asylum in Switzerland, the first thing we do is we look at the Dublin system. So we do a check if the person is already has already lodged an asylum claim in another Dublin country. That's like the first step. And if we see that the person has, for example, already asked for asylum in Croatia or Germany, then we will ask Germany or Croatia to take back that person, and then the asylum procedure will run in that country. So in that case, we will not really give a material negative decision. We will just say, okay, look, we have looked into your application. We see you have already applied into Germany. You must go to Germany. And then if the person, and then we organize the transfer of the person to Germany, and Germany then normally accepts the person back because they say, oh yes, we see they are in our system, we have registered the fingerprints, and then the asylum procedure happens in Germany. If Germany then comes to a negative conclusion at the end of the procedure, Germany will have to organize repatriation out of the Schengen area and into the country of origin. So if we in Switzerland, we go into the material asylum procedure and we come to a negative decision, then we take care of the repatriation, which means we go to the embassy of the country of origin, we organize the papers, we organize a flight and so on, and we make sure that the person is actually returned. Unless, and that is actually in most cases, people then return voluntarily, and if they do so, they actually get financial support to restart their life in their country of origin. Yes, I hope. So either it's yes, I hope that answers the question.
Tak, dziękujemy bardzo. Pojawiło się jeszcze kolejne pytanie.
Yes, thank you so much. And we have another question.
są dystrybuowane między miastami
How
środki finansowe
are
i czy
funds
mógłbyś to jeszcze
for
tak
integration
przybliżyć w
distributed
tym
across
zakresie?
cities? Could you tell us more about that?
Okay. I cannot go into a lot of detail on this because I don't have the specific knowledge, I have to say, but the principle is that the cantons receive lump sums for every person that receives a positive decision. The canton that person lives in or has been, like in the asylum system, people are attributed to specific cantons, and those cantons are then in charge of housing and accommodation, and they receive allowances for that, but they also receive specific allowances for integration. So basically the federal government provides financial allowances to the cantons for their integration programs within the framework of the Swiss national integration agenda. And then the cantons have quite a lot of flexibility to use those funds within the framework that is given also by the law, and also organize themselves with the cities and with the municipalities within the cantons how they want to work. So the main points, we as the federal government, we are mostly in contact with the cantons, and then the cantons work with their local cities and communities for the implementation.
Czyli na poziomie krajowym zarządzacie tym i potem już te pieniądze
So
idą nie
you
poza tym
supervise
migrantem,
this
a
at
już
the
kantony
national level. Then the
z
money, the
miastami
funds are
zarządzają tym
transferred
u siebie
for
zgodnie ze
the
swoimi
migrants, and then
wytycznymi
the cantons
i
and the
potrzebami.
municipalities and the cities manage the funds in line with their guidelines and their needs.
Yes, so yes, they manage the funds within. I mean, we just set the national framework. Provide funds, and then we of course then have to check afterwards that the funds are used in accordance with the national law. But within that framework, there's a lot of flexibility for the cantons and the communes to run the programs that work best for them on the ground.
Dziękujemy bardzo, bo to bardzo dobrze nas
Thank
już
you so
kieruje w
much.
stronę właśnie przyjrzenia się
This
tego, jak to
is a good
wygląda w miastach.
segue to
Jeszcze
looking
ostatnie
at
takie
how
pytanie, które
cities go
pojawia się
about
w
this.
naszym
And the
doświadczeniu,
last
gdy
question that
rozmawiamy o
stems from our
właśnie polityce
experience
migracyjnej,
when we
czy
talk
tutaj w
about
tych wytycznych
migration
takich
policy.
krajowych
In the
pojawiają się
national
jakieś kwestie
guidelines,
dotyczące, bo z
are
czymś tu się w Polsce spotykamy i słyszymy
are there any
głos z naszych
issues
miast, że
which we hear a lot about in
migranci
Poland, in our
dążą do
Polish
większych
cities?
ośrodków niż do
And
średnich.
that is
I czy tutaj w tym
migrants try
zakresie
to go
macie
to
jakieś
larger
doświadczenia
urban
z poziomu
areas?
krajowego, czy jakieś rekomendacje,
Do
czy
you
tak jak
have any
powiedziałeś,
experience
jest to
here on the
zostawione
national level?
tylko
Do
i
you have any
wyłącznie już właśnie na
recommendations,
tym poziomie
or do you
tej
leave it
ramy krajowej, a to
only at the
kantony
level
tym
of the
zarządzają? To
national
takie
frameworks and the
ostatnie
cantons
pytanie. I
manage it?
oddajemy
That's the last question
przechodzimy do kolejnego.
from me, and we will move on to the next speaker.
Okay, I think my colleague who will speak after me might have to say more to that, but I can just say at the national level, when someone comes through the asylum system, they are attributed as part of they are attributed to a specific canton. So asylum seekers cannot freely choose which canton they want to go and live in. And so that is a mechanism to ensure that not everyone goes to Zurich or to Basel or to Geneva, and also it means we don't want specific migrant groups to just concentrate in one place, but it's actually better to have for communities to mix. That is one basic principle there. But of course, once people are recognized as refugees, or once they have, or EU citizens, once they have, when they have a residence permit in Switzerland, they have geographical mobility. So then they can move between cantons and also move to where the labor market, for example, is best for them. So in the asylum context, it is more restricted, but otherwise permanent residents have the freedom to move between Swiss cities. And yes, of course, there is a higher percentage of migrants in bigger cities than in more rural areas.
Bardzo dziękujemy za to wprowadzenie i pokazanie tej ramy krajowej i jakby też
Thank you very
odpowiedź
much
na
for this
pytania,
introduction and
które
presenting the
dotykają
national
ważnych
framework.
doświadczeń
Thank you for these questions, these issues, which are very important. We have Natasha Pitet with us, who will tell us more about the experiences of the city of Biel, Bienne. She is a member of the city council of that city. She is the director of social affairs and security and is responsible for a wide range of social services. And she's also an expert on migration. So she is the right person to share her experience on cities and the canton level. She also has experience in terms of public security. We've already learned that the migrant integration system is connected with a robust cooperation with local stakeholders and NGOs. I must say that the title itself, integration, is no coincidence, strongly emphasizes how interested we are in these experiences that engage different stakeholders and add another level, another perspective that is the practical one. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to participate today in this online Congress. Yes, I would even go farther than to say integration is no accident. I even called my talk integration is no accident, no stronger than coincidence, because it really takes a lot of work on the part of everyone for an immigrant population to be able to integrate. I'd just like to start before I get into the subject to tell you a bit about our city, Biel Bienne. It has two names, Biel in German and Bienne in French, because we are the largest bilingual city in Switzerland, the 10th largest city in the country, which sounds maybe impressive, but we only have 58,000 inhabitants, which would make us very small compared to most Polish cities. And yet Biel is quite well known within Switzerland for many different reasons. We are a watchmaking city. Rolex and Omega watches are made here, but we're also known for our bilingualism and, sadly for us, for rather high unemployment rates and welfare rates. Our welfare rates are currently around 9%. We are proud of our city, though, for other reasons. We can say that Robert Walser, who was a well-known Swiss German language author in the early 20th century, said that he came from Biel, the world's smallest metropolis. And this would still be true today. People from over 160 different countries live together in Biel. 1/3 of the population does not have a Swiss passport, and many among the remaining 2/3 have an immigrant background, meaning that they either have been naturalized, have become Swiss, or that their parents or grandparents originally came from abroad. To go back to what Mark Engler told us before, almost about the difference between refugees and labor migration, almost 4% of our population came as refugees originally, which is about double the rate in the rest of the canton of Bern, to which we belong. In our city, it's normal to come from somewhere else. Just to let you know, our current mayor, who is coincidentally the first woman to hold the position, was herself a refugee from Chile as a child. I myself was born in Switzerland, but of foreign parents, and my parents are still not Swiss today. We can go on to the next slide, which shows us the organizational structure of the city of Biel. I won't go into it in detail, but you can see that, as is usual in Switzerland, we have a government college at municipal level, just like at the federal and cantonal levels, 5 members which have equal weight, and we each head a department. Almost all decisions are taken together and we vote if necessary. We also are 3 German speakers, 2 French speakers, and we come from 5 different parties, just as a note on how we function in Switzerland. We can go on to the next slide, where I will talk about the concept of integration as it is seen in general. It's a society-wide process that requires equal opportunities and mutual respect, and it's aimed, as Mark Engler told us, at economic, social, linguistic, and cultural inclusion. It's no accident or coincidence. It requires the active participant of both the immigrants and of the local population. And This active participation is actually a job. It takes a lot of work for the newcomers, for local society, and the standard structures in order for integration to work. It doesn't matter whether these standard structures are state-run or private. State-run structures would be all administrative services such as schools, waste disposal, social services, and private structures would be companies, for example, employers, but also doctors or leisure activities or clubs. To facilitate coexistence and ensure integration, we must prevent and reduce barriers and create access to existing structures and services. The biggest barrier, obviously, is the knowledge of a local language, but also lack of information and discrimination. To briefly illustrate the last two, if a single mother from Eritrea lives in Biel and her children are still little, she might think that it's impossible for her to take a language course or get a job because who's going to take care of the children? So she needs the information that we have daycare centers in Biel, something that many locals will take for granted. But that's not the case of all immigrant women because maybe there is no daycare in their original country. And then the person will have to find out how to sign up the children for daycare, how to find a language class. So information is essential. And then there's another aspect, and it's sometimes neglected, it's the issue of discrimination as a barrier to integration. Immigrants themselves can be committed and rapid in their personal integration process, but if employers won't hire someone or rent them an apartment because of prejudice, because of their skin color or their religion, even the best integration project won't work out the way it's supposed to. And this applies not only to integration in the labor or rental markets, but to all areas. Also, when it comes to learning the language, a course can be as good as possible, but if people can't have a conversation in real life, they will never reach a high level of language competence. And so we see that racism and discrimination are big barriers to integration. Why should the person who lives here in Biel learn German or French if there's no one to talk to? Also, and that can be seen very clearly in neighboring France, in the banlieue, if there's strong racism and discrimination against immigrants, this can lead to a backlash and endanger social, economic, and public security. In France, in some parts, decades of discrimination have led to a parallel society which violently fights against local institutions, including even ambulances and fire services. So this slide shows what we have to do to integrate with our integration office. We have to dismantle any barriers to integration. And it shows what immigrants, either those who have just arrived or others who have lived in Biel for a long time, need to have and to learn to become independent. It shows what the existing structures need to make their services accessible, open, and known to the immigrant population. And I'll speak about some of our practices later on. In addition, the city, the canton, and the national government with NGOs offer projects, this was briefly mentioned in the preceding conference, that enable immigrants to grow their skills so they can use the services offered. The typical first thing would be a language course, but there are also counseling centers which exist in our canton, which are paid for by cantonal funds, since this was a question that was raised before. And what is very important, and I want to stress it again, even though it was already said, is that we don't want to provide a parallel structure for the immigrant population, but to facilitate generally available services, contrary to what was done in the past. In the 60s and even 70s in Biel, there were special Italian schools for Italian children from working class families, even though Italian is not one of our local languages. And even today, in some countries, there are separate schools for Ukrainian children, which might have been understandable at the beginning because the hope was the war would not last long and the people could soon go home. But if people need to integrate, of course, integrating children into the normal school is one of the fastest ways of doing it. This graphic is the one we use here in Biel, but it illustrates the general system all over Switzerland. We can pass on to the next slide, which covers more or less what was explained by Mark Engler, so I won't stay longer on it. It's the Swiss general immigration policy. And we can go on to the next slide, which is for the cantonal integration programs, which show 7 areas of support. In the next slide. Yes. So here we have the 7 points. You need to assess the integration needs of somebody, because if somebody arrives from France, for example, for the labor market, they already know French and thus do not need a language course. Someone from Germany would already know German. Both those languages are used in everyday life in our city. If someone comes even from a neighboring country such as Italy, language courses may be necessary. These are general programs which are used all over the canton with the 7 areas of encouragement. We can go on now to the next slide, where I'll speak in more detail about what we offer in the city of Biel and for part of the surrounding region, and how we cooperate with private actors and NGOs. So our canton of Bern, to which Biel belongs, has a cantonal integration law, which sets up integration contact points for each part of the canton. The city of Biel runs one for our surrounding area. And these contact points offer free advice on issues of integration and immigration. And when somebody arrives in a city in Switzerland, they have to register at the resident registration office. And there they are sent, if they're identified as needing integration help, they're sent to the integration contact point to get such counseling. This is mandatory for people from third countries, so who are not from the EU or EFTA. And in some cases, EU and EFTA people are also sent to the office. This counseling, though, is free and is available to anyone with an immigrant background who has been in Switzerland, even if they've been here for a long time. The one exception is people who are still in the asylum process, who have been provisionally accepted, but who do not yet have a normal labor permit. Those people are still included in the asylum process and not in the general integration process. On the next slide, you can see the issues on which we give advice. It can be anything from language to family and relationships. For example, explaining the rights of women in divorce law in Switzerland, which can be very different from what it would be in another country, on racism and discrimination, on housing. And these are all topics which you can pursue at your leisure when you look at the slides later on. The next 2 slides were showing, it shows the how many subjects are raised by the people who come past the office. And the next 2 have the legal basis from the canton and confederation, which I will not go into in greater detail. It's just so you can have them in the presentation. So we can pass the next 2 slides. This is the federal law on integration. This is the cantonal law on integration. And then the next is the flyer that we advertises our counseling services, which we put all over the city, wherever we think people may need it, at schools, at the resident registration office, some doctor's offices, so that people know that there is this free service, which is paid for by the cantonal funds, where people can come past. It's open, the door's open, and they can come get information about how to integrate. On the next slide, we can see, besides this individual advisory work for individuals, the center also has work to do in coordinating integration work, and maintaining a network with everyone who promotes integration, because there are also NGOs, many associations in our city, which do important work in integration with their own private funds or with some very small funds from the city. I'll tell you about that later. But there are language course providers, there's vocational training for people who come who do not have job skills which are immediately usable in Switzerland, sports groups, family information, and we also support the municipal administration in general. For example, 10 years ago, there was no specific early language support for children with an immigration background in Biel. And the integration office designed and launched and secured the financing for such a project, so that children would be able to learn one of the national languages before starting their schooling at age 4 or 4.5. We also have helped put out leaflets on topics of the market police, which in Switzerland and in our town can give authorizations to use public spaces, for example, for events, or tell people when and where to put out the garbage, which may seem incidental, but it's true that if there is littering or if garbage is put out on the wrong day, the local population is very quick to say that it's immigrants' fault. And so it's very important to inform people on how we do things here in order to help. We also have developed solutions for specific integration promotion with the cantonal authorities and other towns around us, and help also transfer academic knowledge to the practical level. For your further information on the next slide, there are examples of the networking carried out in order to have the best practices for ourselves, but also to share our knowledge with other municipalities or cantons. But now, and I think this is probably the most interesting part, I'd like to turn to a few concrete projects of the Integration Office. On the next slide, we can show that the City of Biel supports associations and NGOs with 50,000 francs per year. That's 50,000 euros, more or less. So not a large sum, but this is our city's own money. It is not the federal integration money, which mostly goes for projects for refugees and not for immigrants from EU, EFTA, or third countries who come for the labor market. And these projects are looked at by the Integration Office, also by our Integration Commission, which includes 14 people from different migration backgrounds. And they need to be aligned with our guidelines and objectives, obviously. They need to be bilingual. And I do not mean original language of the immigrant, but French and German, because that is very important in our city. They need co-financing from other sources. And some examples can be workshops with immigrant men and women on daily topics, which are led by migrants as well, on equality between men and women, on schooling, on freedom of speech, on basic questions which migrants may have when they live here. We also offer things that may seem like details, but bike riding courses for immigrants, because we are a flat city with many people who use bicycles. So we have courses. There's a youth free soccer league. There's House für Biel, House for Biel, which is a volunteer-run house which offers courses, a multilingual choir, and other such small, low-level integration projects. The next slide shows a few pictures from our annual Migration and Integration Forum, which is something else we organize. It is intended for migrants themselves with a variety of topics. This year, since it was the 10th anniversary of our strategy on integration, we decided it was time to review and adjust the focus. So the announced subject of the forum was, what is integration? And we wanted people to tell us what we've been doing well and where there is need for different or other projects. There are also roundtable discussions where migrants themselves participate, for example, on citizen or non-citizen participation on the political level, on the recognition of diplomas, on work integration, etc. And partner organizations, mostly NGOs, have market stalls where they present their programs so people can come and spend the evening, about 330 people this year, to come and see what we do. We also have, on the next slide, an action week against racism. This is organized in many cities across Switzerland with money that was received from the federal level. And there are many cultural events, plays, exhibitions, films, mostly organized by private individuals or NGOs, and we serve as a office that receives all the projects and decides which ones are worthy of getting some of the federal money. Finally, I'd like to come to our latest project. Since, which you can see on the next slide, the problem is communication often between immigrants and people who already live here. And since we have such a high proportion of foreign nationals in the city, over 30%, and an increasing number of people from very different cultures and countries, the standard municipal structures have had much higher demands put on them. The schools and social services are under a lot of pressure, and teachers and social workers never have enough time to find out what is happening. Important conversations are led with interpreters, but it's not always only a language problem. And as a result, people don't always know what their role or responsibility is, which can lead to conflicts. The reasons can, for example, be that immigrants don't know enough about the Swiss school system or social services, which can work all over. And this can differently all over. And this can happen even in people from neighboring countries. For example, in France, mandatory school or public school starts at age 2.5. And we've had French families arrive and be quite surprised that here it doesn't start until you're 4 and that you don't necessarily have lunch at school. And to have somebody explain this to you is a help. So what we've done, and this we can see on the next slide, is we have what we've called an information facilitation project to provide our standard city structures with information facilitators. Now, these are people who have lived in Switzerland for a long time, but who originally came from another country. And teachers or social workers, for the time being, these are the two parts of the city administration we have included just for reasons of budget and of number of people who can help. So teachers or social workers can sign up the parents of their students or social welfare recipients with the integration office, who will then provide a facilitator or mediator almost, you could say, from the same country of origin. And our office trains the facilitators and accompanies them and supports them. And the task is to educate, mediate, and pass on knowledge. On the next slide, we can see that during the 8-month pilot phase, we had 15 facilitators using 17 different languages. Most of them only had to work for a short period and were able to very quickly solve issues, which was a great help for the regular structures because a lot of extra work was created in the past because of misunderstandings. To give you just one example, there was a father from Eritrea who was becoming increasingly hostile and aggressive in working with the school. And the teacher and the school administration were under a lot of pressure and didn't really know what to do and couldn't find out what the problem was. But after 10 minutes on the phone with the father, the facilitator was able to find out that the problem was the school had said the child of this father needed speech therapy. And the father thought that the school was diagnosing his child with a cognitive disability, which made him angry and made him not trust the school anymore. And after a conversation with the facilitator, explaining that speech therapy is something totally normal. A lot of children go. It's a service. It's free. It doesn't mean anything. It has nothing to do with how clever the child is or not. Then the cooperation between parents and school went back to being harmonious and goal-oriented. So this was, we find this to be a great success with not too great cost. These facilitators are paid for by municipal funds. And usually need only a few hours of talking to explain how things work so that people can get on together and better integrate. The next few slides, this is the flyer about this facilitator system. You can see we have it in French and in German in the 2 slides with information for the schools and the parents. And the next slide shows an overview of what the integration unit does. We work just to tell you, the 3 colors are the 3 main groups for which we work. One is for the administration itself, the municipal structures, and the partner organizations. Then the second is the immigrant population itself. And the orange is for the general population, everyone, whether they've lived here for a long time, born here or not. On my final slide, I'd like to come back to the one I started with. If we go to the next slide, the final slide is the same as the beginning. To say, for politicians in Biel, but not only in Biel, but in Biel, integration is no accident, it's no coincidence. But it's a society-wide process that requires a lot of commitment, respect, and political, social, and individual intent. And I think this is a message which is necessary for all of us. I would be interested to know from you if it's the same in Poland. I see I have a question on the WhatsApp group. Should I answer directly, or is somebody going to read it?
Bardzo prosimy. Znaczy, pierwsze to nie tyle pytanie, co raczej komentarz, podzielenie się doświadczeniem
First of all,
lektury
it's not
o
a question,
Szwajcarii.
it's just a comment. I
Nasz
wanted to
uczestników
share
zauważył,
our
że
publication about
system
Switzerland. One
odbioru
of
w
our
Szwajcarii jest na
participants
tyle
has noticed that the
skomplikowany,
system
że
in
są
Switzerland
z
is
tego szkolenia dla
complicated enough.
mieszkańców,
That is
które także są
why
ważne
trainings
dla
are being
imigrantów i to może być
conducted for
znakomita okazja
inhabitants
do
and also
budowania
for migrants.
platformy
It can be a
współpracy i
great
integracji
opportunity
migrantów z
to
lokalną
build
społecznością.
cooperation
Gdybyś to
program
skomentowała, to jak ty to widzisz?
platform in
A drugie pytanie
local
jest bardzo
communities.
konkretne,
I wanted to ask you how you
ponieważ
see
dużo
that.
o
And my
zadaniach.
second question is
Ja
very
jestem pod
concrete.
olbrzymim
You
wrażeniem tej
told us
prezentacji
about a lot
i myślę,
about
że wielu z
task. I'm
naszych
under great
uczestników
impression of this
dzisiaj słuchało z
presentation.
tego
Many of
zaparte
the
uchem,
participants
bo
today
to
have
była
been
kopalnia
listening
pomysłów,
to
bardzo dużo konkretów.
it with great
Zaczęła się od
interest because
wskazania
this was
tych
a
7
whole
obszarów
bunch of
wsparcia w
concrete
regionalnych
topics, and
programach
you've
integracyjnych.
told us
Potem
about different
przełożyłaś to na znacznie
types of
więcej
support on a
zadań,
cantonal and
które
municipal level,
urząd
and then
miasta,
you
gdzie jesteś
told us
dyrektorem,
about
ale i
many
Rada Rady
tasks
Miasta
for the
realizuje,
city
a
council,
potem
for the school
pokazałaś na konkretnym
directors,
przykładzie,
and you
jak te
told us
zadania
how
są
it's
realizowane
implemented,
już
and
bardziej
then you told
szczegółowo.
us how it's implemented
Domyślam
in
się, że
more
gdybyśmy mieli
detail.
więcej czasu,
And I assume
moglibyśmy mieć
if we had more
jedno całe
time,
seminarium
we could have
poświęcone
a
twojej
whole
olbrzymiej wiedzy i
seminar
doświadczeniu.
only
Ale
about
dziękuję,
your
że w tym
knowledge and
krótkim czasie
experience, but
tak
thanks
dużo już nam
for
przekazałaś.
presenting so
Ale
much in such a short
mówiąc o
period
tak
of
bardzo
time.
zakresie działań,
But
pytanie
talking
jest
about such a huge
podstawowe.
scope of
Ile osób
activities, a
pracuje
question
w
arises: how
komórce,
many
w wydziale,
people there
które
are
zajmuje się
in the
realizacją tych
unit
zadań dotyczących
dealing
migrantów?
with the
Jak dużo
task
jest to osób i jak udaje wam się uzyskać
related to
współpracę
migrants, and how
tej
are you
części
able
urzędu,
to
która zajmuje się
cooperate with the other
polityką
departments
migracyjną,
of the
z
office
innymi
dealing
wydziałami Urzędu
with
Miasta? Jak wygląda ta współpraca
different
między wydziałami w
tasks in the
administracji
city? What
publicznej w twoim mieście?
does the cooperation between those administrative units in your city looks like?
Well, in the integration office, there are 10 people, of which 8 work for the individual support of migrants, so who come past to ask for individual support. And that is, I think people wanted to know about financing. That's financed by money we receive from the canton, because that is an official task in the on the cantonal level of how we integrate people in the canton. And then, so only 2 people are in charge of the projects which we do on the municipal level. So it isn't a very big financial implication for the city, also because we are a working class city originally and do not have a lot of funding, which is a whole other question. But these projects are set up with the municipal funds and these 2 people who work on the projects, which is why there's a lot of collaboration with outside associations, NGOs, for some projects, foundations who give funds.
Bardzo dziękuję. I jeszcze jedno pytanie,
Thank you
którego
very
nie
much. One
mogę
more
się
question.
powstrzymać, żeby nie
I cannot
zadać,
stop myself
bo
not to
jesteś
ask it,
osobą, która
because
nie
you
od
are a
dzisiaj
person
zajmuje się kwestiami
who's
migracji.
been dealing with
Parę razy
immigration
podczas
for a
prezentacji
long time,
powiedziałaś,
and
że
a couple of times
wymiarem
during the
nabywania nowych
presentation you told us
doświadczeń
that
zauważyliście, że trzeba
during
uruchomić
gaining
taki czy
new
inny
experiences, you've
projekt.
noticed that you have to
Czy
launch one
mogłabyś ze
or
swojej
another
perspektywy
project. Could
powiedzieć,
you tell us from
jak
your
zmienia
perspective
się nastawienie
how
mieszkańców do
does
migrantów, czy
the
się zmienia?
approach of the
I
inhabitants
czy
towards
dzisiaj
migrants change?
zauważasz,
And
że
if it
są nowe
changes,
wyzwania, nowe
do you
problemy,
see new
które może
problems or new
jeszcze niedawno
challenges
nie
that
były tak zauważane,
were not that
które trzeba
visible
podjąć w polityce
recently that
migracyjnej?
has to be taken into account in the migration policy?
Well, as Mark Engler said, there tend to be political discussions around who migrants are, which often do not correspond to the truth. People have, sadly, in the population, have the feeling that immigration is mostly asylum, and then they have the feeling that a lot of the immigrants are actually people who want asylum but don't have the right to receive it. And thus they have the impression that criminality is due to immigrants. They have the impression that violence within the family is due to immigrants. And it's true that that's difficult. For example, with our week against racism, when we announced on the social media that we were doing it again this year, as usual, there are a lot of hateful comments saying, why are you doing this? There is no racism. I'm not racist. And it's a larger societal problem to have of people who tend to want to shut off and stay within their own group and not want to live together and to integrate. And that's why it's important to say it's a job for both the newcomers and the locals. Integration has to be work on both parts. And we can't just say, oh, the immigrants are here, they can do what we do and just be quiet and stay in their corner. And that doesn't work that way.
I jeszcze jedna prośba o uzupełnienie
One more
odpowiedzi.
request
To już jest
to
ostatnie pytanie. Gdybyś
supplement the
jeszcze
answer.
odniosła się
Could
do kwestii
you tell
współpracy
us
między
more
wydziałami.
about
Na
the
ile polityka
intra-departmental
migracyjna jest
cooperation?
rozrodzeniem
How
jednego
far
wydziału,
is this
a na ile
migration topic
ten
the
wydział
task
może
of
liczyć
one
na
department, and
wsparcie,
how far
włączanie
can
się
this
innych
department
komórek?
hope for support of other units?
Well, the schools which are in a different department are confronted with the problem very directly, if it's a problem, but with the topic, because in the schools, some school classes have no children who are Swiss or whose parents know the language, and so then you have an entire class where all the children speak different foreign languages, and there is need for support, and that need is recognized, and there's a lot of interaction and working together. Some departments don't see it the same way or don't have the same need either because they don't have any direct contact. I don't know, the finance department, it doesn't really matter which nationality the people have. But everybody who works directly with the population can also address themselves to us. We also, on the city level, have a commission on against discrimination, which was originally founded as a gender discrimination. It was founded several decades ago to try to have enough employees who were women, interestingly. And today it's become much wider. It's discrimination within the administration, but also towards the population. And if there's an important subject that comes up, that'll be discussed at that level.
Wspomniałaś o klasach, gdzie są właściwie wszystkie dziećmi migrantów.
You've mentioned these classes full of migrant children. Let me discuss the experience of Poland. We used to be mono-ethnical, and in recent years we've experienced an influx of migrants. One of the Polish teachers said that a couple of years back he didn't have even one foreigner in his class, then 2 or 3 migrants, but they integrated very quickly, and then he had enough migrants for them to create their own football team, and they didn't need Polish colleagues to play football anymore. Let that be a commentary to the changes we are witnessing in Poland and in Switzerland alike. Thank you very much, Natasha, for your time. We were delighted to have you. Thank you for being here at this important meeting. Owing to time constraints, let us move on to the next presentation. Let me introduce the next speaker, Tina Babot. She is a project lead and also a scientific associate. She is part of the Integration and Anti-Racism Office. This is a unit which is a part of a bigger unit, the Equality and Diversity Department. And I'm telling you that name because it's a great introduction to the tasks and challenges that local societies have to tackle. We're moving from Bienne to Baselstadt, canton and a city. Tina Babot focuses on integration initiatives, counteracting discrimination and promoting intercultural dialogue in local communities. Tina Babot has experience in psychological advisory, in intercultural coaching, managing communication, and she uses these skills in her daily work. And today she will talk about including migrants, in the life of local communities. We will follow up on these elements that we've already discussed. We're moving to a different level, however, the level of the city. And Tina, I give you the floor.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Is it okay? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to give some other examples, perhaps on a city and canton level. And thank you so much to Natasha, because she gave already a lot of good insights on the city and cantonal level. So I will probably skip these information a bit faster to give the more practical view on our work on a city level. Yeah, I just hold on. I will share my screen again. So, okay, this is
yes, it's perfect.
Okay, start. So the title is Together in Basel. So it's about mainly how we strengthen social integration and the community participation, exactly what Natasha said before. How can we get migrants and the population to cooperate, to talk to each other, and also prevent racism? I will give you just a brief idea of how we are organized, which is always a bit complicated because it's, as you probably know, all cities have their own structure. So as we are a canton and a city at the same time, we have a parliament, but also the public administration, which does the whole work on a city level and a canton level. So we have 7 cantonal departments, which are like the ones that Natasha also presented. So we have like the health department, or the education department, financial department, all that. And at the top of the government, there's like the mayor, it's the president, and he's also the head of the presidential department, which has 5 offices, and there's like a mix of the culture department where all the museums are in, there's planning of the city, but there's also our department or our office, which is the Equality and Diversity Division. And inside of that, we have 3 different areas, and there's equality of genders. There is the Integration and Anti-Racism Office, which I'm in, and the Office for the Rights for People with Disabilities. So a lot about inclusion work. So I'm in this Integration and Anti-Racism Office. Just a small background, I'm German-French. I moved here 18 years ago to Basel, and I have a very intercultural background, and yeah, I'm also counselor and intercultural coach, so I bring a lot of this knowledge of what it means to move to a different country, what integration means from different perspectives. So this is also part of my work, which is very important. My biggest project in this division is I'm responsible for welcome to Basel. So I'm responsible to welcome all the newcomers, everyone who moves to Basel. That means from asylum seekers, also then migrants, or people moving from one canton in Switzerland here to Basel. So I will tell you more about that, the project, how we do that. The objectives we have in our division, Integration and Anti-Racism, is we want to live together in diversity. So all cultural and religious diversity is visible. and everybody can live in that diversity without fear of discrimination. So we try to give access to all areas of life. So all authorities, institutions, and companies try to work against discrimination and to facilitate access to the main regular structure we offer as a canton, as a city. The third objective is a very big one, and it's really rising, and we strongly work on that. It's the participation. So this is also a good link to what Natasha said before. This is that the canton and the municipalities, so our whole area here, promote the participation of people with a migrant background. So I will tell you more about that too, how that is possible. I just briefly show you how the population or the foreign population in Basel is structured. I just give you a brief translation. So when you start from the bottom with the blue part, this is Germany, people coming from Germany, and then mainly all the European countries. And for example, you can see I don't know how to describe this color. This is like the Ukraine is the third from the top. So as you know, we have also migrant or asylum seekers and migrants from the UK, which are also a small part of the asylum seekers, mainly within the migrant population. So the biggest part of people with a migrant background are coming from EU and EFTA countries. So the canton integration program has been mentioned before. Of course, we are also part of it. Most of our projects and programs are financed by this program. So it's already set up since 2014. So we have like a two finance system. So this is on a cantonal level, like giving funds through the canton integration program, and also on the federal level funds coming into. So our population, or the funds or the projects we are targeting are, of course, the migrant population. The asylum and refugee sector is completely covered by our cantonal structure, the social authorities, with their own case manager, and they get their own integration and process through one-to-one counseling. And of course, we target our general population, and but the main focus has been, and this has raised in the last years, is that persons and family reunification. So when one person comes to seek asylum, or coming to apply for a job, and then wants to get the family over in the country here to Basel. And we have, of course, in the migrant population, they're much bigger threatened by poverty, of course, and isolated by that. And of course, more isolated from social activities, or they don't get so easily into social communities or neighborhood communities. So I will give you some examples later on. So, I will give you a brief idea of our welcome culture. So this is something which is strongly part of our cantonal communication and structure. So when people come to Basel from another country, they have to, of course, register at the office and the immigration office of Basel, And then they get an welcome interview with their first important information, what to do first, getting health insurance and how to find housing and all that. A very important first information platform we started 2 years ago. Several cantons have joined this community. It is a platform in 20 languages, which gives information, like first level information about living and working in Basel. So this is a very important platform we're using and promoting to everyone who comes to Basel. So when people moved or registered at the office, they get a big welcome package by post, physically, from the canton. And in that package, you have a voucher where you can do social and cultural activities in the city for free. And you're welcomed by the mayor in different languages on a letter. And you're also invited for a welcome event. So this is what I'm responsible for. So in the last years, we've been executing 4 welcome events per year. We do that in our theater in Basel. They have a foyer, which is a public place. And everyone who moves to Basel, as I said before, or migrants, also refugees, also people coming from the labor market, are invited, and they get a lot of first level information, which they now get through this platform mainly, but they also get a lot of information how to socialize, how to get in contact with your neighborhood communities, a lot with organizations on a voluntary level. So there are a lot of organizations doing voluntary work to counsel and migrants and get them together and get in dialogue with them. So these 4 events are taking place. They're very people cherish that a lot, and they always say this made them feel very welcome. And this is the first step of feeling a little bit more at home when you arrive in the city. And people together, when they come to these events, they also connect with each other. And we are now changing this approach a bit, this concept. So in the future, we're going to focus more on social interaction, intercultural interaction in these events to make people more feel socially and culturally integrated. And so we talked about that earlier. Language is a big thing. It's very important. So everybody who comes, every person who comes to Basel gets free German courses. Or discounted, but the early language support, and this is something that we realized is very important for small children, that they get that before kindergarten, because kindergarten starts here at 4. So often it is important to get language support to the families with their small children, even before they get into the regular school structure. We have a lot of different programs that promote intercultural interaction, and a big one that also Natasha mentioned before, and I suppose it's a little bit the same. We have projects we fund, and these projects are mainly migrant communities we work with. We have over 22 migrant communities that have been working with us and these communities, these people, they gather their own community peers, often also from refugee groups, to get into these communities, and they can ask from a list of reference from our canton to get information workshops about everyday life in their community. So this is very important, because often when you are coming as a migrant and you don't speak the language, it is quite difficult to get the right information and where to get it. So often they are helped by their own community and bring people together. We have also a project that's called Bridge Builders, and this is also something that is very successful. It's a bit, but also what Natasha described before is that it's a companion or people getting support from singular trained counselors who have their own intercultural background, coming from another country, but have been living here for some time. And they are often giving support to foreign language families with children, and often with small children, and also connect with the schools or the kindergarten to give a better information flow inside of the structure. We have a lot of projects. I can see that it's going to be difficult to name them all, but which is really the one that's really interesting too, that we have a program for older migrants. That means people who are often have been living for some time here, and they have their own cafe and their exchange cafe to get in contact with each other and spend some time. And this is all financed through our cantonal funds, but also between different departments. The question before was also how do we interconnect and how do we bring the integration, the integration issue and problems into the other regular structures. And there's a strong commission and a conference between all the different departments. They have a delegate, a person who is responsible for the subject of integration inside of their department. So in the health department is someone, in the educational department, the financial. So they're all sitting together regularly to see where they can address that topic in their structure. So yeah, we do also do the Action Week Against Racism Natasha described before, once a year in March, which is very successful because a lot of cultural events and coming together happens there. And of course, we also see as a canton and a city that there's one side probably at the younger population, a lot of open-minded people, and they want to interact and they want to get in contact with each other. And I would say in the older Swiss population, there's a lot of fear also flaming up, and it's interesting because we are a city of 200,000 people. At the French border and at the German border, you can walk over, it's so close. So we are at the 3-country corner and inside of Europe. So a lot of people live in France or in Germany and come for work in Basel or have been for decades. And so there's, on the one hand, a lot of flexibility about that. There are a lot of people from other countries coming and going all the time in different languages. And at the same time, the city has its own very traditional and or also very conservative tradition and culture. So this is the everyday challenge to play with that and to be open for that listen to people most of the time. So I want to give an example which is very, very important on a neighborhood level. How we do integration or promote it is that we have community centers all over the city. We have 15 community centers, and they offer a wide program, from cultural program to language learning, eat and cook together, kids activities, counseling even. And this is something that has changed a lot, the integration program, and promote it every day, bring it forward on a neighborhood level. Because of course, as all cities have the same problem or structure, is that migrants move to certain areas of the city where housing is, for example, cheaper, or of course you have like the richer parts, and then you have like the people with less money. So it's very important to get the local population involved, and a lot of do that on a voluntary level. But we're also financing these community centers from our canton fundings. We promote a lot, and this is also something we have, which is part of our own office, our division, Integration Anti-Racism, that we have inter-religious coordinator who found years ago, created a roundtable of all mainly biggest religious communities in Basel. So they get a lot of interaction there, and that's the idea is really to live in a tolerant and an open-minded and respectful way, and open their own religious communities and houses to everyone. So there's often a lot of festivities and activities how to also get the local population into the religious communities. And often a lot of people, migrants coming from other countries, especially when they are very far away, they find a lot of comfort in their own religious community in the city, and support and counseling. So it's very important to be in contact also with these communities. And yeah, and of course we try to give health equity to everyone, like accessible health promotion and equal opportunities. Yeah, I didn't. Oh yeah, now I can see them. The clock.
Dziękujemy
I'm
bardzo.
almost on time. So this was a very practical approach. I skipped all the structure and all the details of our functioning of our canton, which could be very confusing probably, but which is always complicated. But I hope you could get some ideas, and I'm open for questions. Very happy to.
Tino, bardzo dziękujemy.
Tina, thank you very much.
Bardzo dziękujemy. Właśnie
Thank you. Let me just go out of them.
Czy słyszymy się?
Can you hear us?
I took the presentation off, right? You can see me.
Tak, czy się słyszymy, Tino?
Can you hear us, Tina?
Tak,
yes.
You can hear us, right? Good. Thank you very much for very detailed and interesting presentation, especially from the perspective of the everyday life of Polish cities and the challenges migration poses. And your practical approach is very complex, but I also like you to pay attention to a very important issue, because the issue of diversity is also very important, because we have migrants from different cultures, different nationalities, and managing this diversity is especially important. But there are also other issues that appear here, for example, the Parliament of Women, or the issues related to people 50 and 50 plus. I don't see no questions in the chat, but I'd like to ask a question. whether you encounter any experiences in your approach related to the fact that particular groups of people or individuals do not want to use these welcoming culture and solutions related to that. Do you have any homogenic groups that do not want to use all the instruments through which you support the process of integration?
Yeah, thank you for that question. There's something shifting, and that's what I mentioned a bit before. We have, of course, people coming from very different life backgrounds. So when we say we have migrants for the labor market, and then we have refugees and all that. So the welcome events, we don't see the refugees there because they are mainly very occupied with their own life situation. So, but they are counseled by the social workers, which give them the most important in the first month and year, probably information how to settle. But we at the group of migrants in general, like coming for the labor market. In former times, because we have very big pharmaceutical and chemical companies here, and a lot of people come to work here we call them global employees. And so these are used to go to these welcome things and events. And now our focus of our work and our division is to all the other migrants and the group that are perhaps not, for them it's not so easy to get information about what we can offer as a city, and which doesn't cost much, or where you can get involved. So we can see slowly that these people are coming too. And we're going to do in a new project, try to pull them more into these offers we have. And because we really think they need more social and intercultural interaction.
Dziękuję. Pojawiło się pytanie na czacie.
A question has been asked in the chat window. How many NGOs are working with migrants? How broad is the set of NGOs supporting those integrated activities? Could you elaborate on this dimension? I'm asking, Ms. Agnieszka asks concretely about numbers.
Okay, that gets me on the wrong foot. I can find that out, how many they are, but we have also a mix of fundings from NGOs, but also from companies, and a lot of voluntary work. So, for example, the Red Cross Switzerland, their office in Basel, they have a huge program for counseling refugees and work with them or with their families. So, for example, like organizations like the Red Cross or other NGOs is very important, and there's a big culture of voluntary work. There's one that has been in Switzerland for quite a time, and what I can see is that there's a lot of engagement from the population in voluntary work, and especially working with migrants and refugees. But I can give you the numbers if I can. I can look that up and give it later, send it to Tomasz.
Będziemy bardzo wdzięczni właśnie za to takie uzupełnienie. To wtedy
very grateful for such a complete information. But as you are underlining, that these are canton-based activities, but the NGOs are sort of a vehicle engaging the local communities and volunteers. So this level of cooperation, on one hand, is institutional, and on the other hand, it's more engaging through the NGOs, right? And so last question here. It's about the activities you're sharing with us, but we also had before about the experiences from Biel. All this indicates this dimension of those activities that are being run on the cantonal, but also city level, municipal level. So you have funds available at each and every level, because if I heard well, also companies are being involved. So you have different sources of financing.
Yeah, this is like oh, exactly. There's these three pillars, but companies, which is often sponsoring, could be an important sponsor for bigger projects. For example, we have since this year a big project that means it's called Inside, looking inside of social institutions and NGOs. And this is something this will be held next year again. And this is also founded by, for example, by a company, but also a mix of different fundings. But it helps the population to get an insight about a very diverse social work on several levels. And that also helps people to give them ideas. Where can I get involved? Where can I help to broaden the diversity and the living together in the city? Yeah.
Dziękujemy, bo to pokazuje taką odsłonę
Thank you very much, because this shows us a different view. During one Polish-Swiss workshops we've seen the engagement of the entrepreneurs who give this insight into how what companies are doing for young people. But it seems that this is also a practice that allows the migrants to get to know the institutions and allows to integrate them more actively and make them understand.
Tino, bardzo dziękujemy
Tina, thank you very much for these very practical dimensions that you've shared with us. And this seems to be a marvelous reference to our last topic. This is the combination of the needs of the labor market and the integration. So I'd like to give the floor to Susanny Sinach, so you could get better insight, because we sort of start seeing this framework. We see these activities implemented by cantons and cities, and in the end, as we've heard in the first presentation, one of the key aspects of the integration of migrants is the support of the local entrepreneurial market. We are waiting for Tuszyna, who's a business consultant from Magniti GmbH in Basel. What's really interesting related to her experience is the specialization in global labor force in Switzerland. So we see here about the diversity, and we see from how many areas those migrants come. Welcome, Dushi. You have a broad experience in solving problems related to lack of talents. What's also relevant in your experience is the NGO's perspective, because Dushi is managing two NGOs, Ausländersteiberstadt and FIEDA, where she deals with topics related with strategic topics of integration of migrants into the labor market. In 2022 and 2023, she conducted an analysis of cooperation with cantons, so we know and understand the perspective through which we can have a look and how can we effectively and multidimensionally approach to solving problems related to lack of talents. So in here, you'll be sharing your experiences on how to coordinate to this local and regional level with what's of key importance to the market needs of the market, so that the migration of migrants can add them to what's needed by the migrants. Welcome, and we give you the floor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Słyszymy
Yes,
się.
hi. Can you hear me? Hi, good afternoon, almost, ladies and gentlemen. A sunny welcome from Basel, Switzerland. My name is Dushanti Sinia, and as a migrant myself who is specialized in international labor market in Switzerland, I'm very passionate about labor integration for migrants, and also this is my profession, that I work together with the cantons and also NGOs to ease the process of integration for migrants in general. And this presentation is established with the collaboration of Andreas Ress, the head of migration, integration and civil rights in Basel-Land, Canton Basel-Land. So the presentation, my presentation explores the key challenges first, what we face in Switzerland in integrating asylum seekers and other immigrants into the Swiss labor market, and using Canton Basel-Landschaft and also their communities, like cities, as case study. Let's examine how the cities and communities and the whole system collaborate together as key players. Finally, I introduce an initiative, so-called Project Gastro-Einstieg, an entry to the gastronomy sector. And before introducing, going to the introduction part, I would like to briefly touch upon a history where the immigration labor market integration started in Switzerland. So after the World War II, Switzerland experienced a significant economic growth. Therefore, we invited actually that time the Italians and other migrants to get into the labor market and help us. But then straight after that, we have noticed that the country has noticed there are many challenges, not only socially, but also in the economic sector to integrate them, because one of the authors that time, Max Frisch, he criticizes this as, we only invited people, we only invited the labor force, but instead the whole humanity arrived. So with cultures, sorrows, and also with their personalities, now we have to deal with it. So since then, not straight after what he said, since then in 90s, some of the cantons have been undertaking numerous measures, and also for the immigrants to get into the labor market easily, and also get into the society and be an acceptable society in Switzerland. The introduction is, as my previous speakers already mentioned, very broad, in a very broad way, Switzerland provides a wide range of support to migrants to help them access sustainable employment and settle in this country. This achieved through actually a joint effort kind of with federal government, cantons, municipalities, and the economy, labor market itself, and social partners. It's a collaborative approach. And there are programs that each canton has different programs focusing on acquiring language skills, training, and also work experience. And these are continuously adapted to the needs of the labor market in Switzerland. So it's a continuous process that we learn from the previous mistakes and keep improving. The success rate of integration varies across the country, influenced by such a factor such as geography, economic condition of the cantons, and labor workforce and the market needs, and so on. Smaller cantons tend to be more successful in integrating migrants into the labor market. Smaller cities also very successful integrating migrants into the labor market than the bigger ones, according to the statistics. Before looking at the Basel land as a canton, let's briefly consider the key challenges that we face in Switzerland when integrating migrants into the labor market. The main factors are the individual attribute that the migrants themselves they bring to this country. That's a very positive, and also there are some challenges for. So as you can read already here in written in Polish, not only the language, lack of the language skills, but also the experience, competences. And the host country, which means Switzerland, and the home country, for an example, Eritrea, differences. When the differences become more, the challenges become also more. More specifically, the motivational factors of the immigrants to get into the job market. There are some challenges we also face in this aspect, but somehow the collaborative approach of Swiss integration system work together to optimize getting over these challenges and also integrate them into the Swiss market. The next, the thing is, in Swiss labor market in Switzerland have very high expectation in terms of the candidate profile. Employees looking for very strong qualification, proving work experience, and a high professional standard. Often, even foreign diplomas are not being recognized. So that's some major challenges that we face here in Switzerland, because, for an example, nursing from Germany, they can do the nursing with some sort of courses, but from other part of the country, they will have to go through the study again, or maybe some of the countries major studies, some of the countries smaller studies. But the recognition is very difficult in Switzerland. But there are NGOs and also the governmental cantons together. They are working together on this, aspect to optimize how to get this certification recognized. One hand, we face a significant shortage of challenge. On the other hand, we also have challenges integrating migrants into the labor market. This creates a gap between what employees need and the qualification each individual brings. And bridging these gaps requires more than the language skills. It requires actually targeted training, workplace experience, and also support system that helps migrants to develop the necessary competence that match with the Swiss economy. So in this aspect, actually, the NGOs are stepping in, playing a massive role, promoting and also supporting labor market integration. Like already Natasha and Tina, they already have mentioned this. They provide actually job coaching, language courses, and also job preparation, and help match migrants' profile to the labor market needs. This is a long process and also challenging part of the process, integrating them into the job market. But at the end, we all gain the win-win situation. Looking at Switzerland as a whole, about 40% of the residents aged above 15 have migrant background. who have Swiss nationality and who don't have the Swiss nationality, including the whole population. Around quarter of the population are foreign nationals, which means they do not have Swiss nationality. And 50,000 Polish are living in Switzerland without Swiss nationality. And when you count the whole with the Swiss nationality, it might probably have a little bit higher. Let's look at the Canton Basel-Landschaft that I'm going to specifically talk about. It has 84 municipalities, like Gemeinde, we call it, and 2 cities. So very small cities, municipalities from the larger ones. So they all work together to actually, optimize the work integration together with the cantons and also with the federal government and NGOs. About 40% of the population are foreign background, and Polish population, it's about 1,600 without Swiss nationality. So let's go into looking at the labor market integration in Switzerland. Is a collaborative process. At the federal level, 2 offices oversee integration policies and measures. One we already heard from the SEM, Mr. Beckler. And the other one is SECO. SECO is the economic department or in the federal level, and they mostly take in charge of the migrants who doesn't have the refugee status. So let's just go through this process first, and I will come back to the same process what Mr. Engelberg mentioned. So in Basel-Land, we have this KIGA, that's an economic office for the cantonal economic office. They work together with SECO and also NGOs, for an example, Ausländerdienst, Basel-Land, to get these people, the migrants, into the economy. And on the other hand, we have SEM. We already have spoken. The first speaker has already mentioned about it. And when it comes to Canton Basel-Landschaft, we have actually office called social welfare. They work together with the refugees. They are responsible for refugees to integrate them into job market. And on the other hand, the 86 cities and Gemeinden are the take the final part of the responsibility to get these asylum seekers and also migrants into the job market. Just for a quick example, as myself, as a migrant came from England to here, I came here for studying and working, so I was considered as a global employee, so I didn't have to go through all these processes. But on the other hand, my brother, he came as a refugee to another canton, a very small canton called Glarus. And there he went through all the process and he didn't speak any German. And then it took him about 15 years to finish his nursing diploma here in Switzerland. Now he's even, studying further to get into further education and working for the hospitals. And there, the canton and the cities are working together with the different hospitals, for an example, in this case, and funding my brother for the education, for his education and completing, because they have also shortage of talent in the hospital staffs. So they are in need of these employees, therefore they also support. So it is always like win-win situation, creating a win-win situation by supporting the migrants' integration. I have chosen 2 NGOs actually, which is ALD, Ausländerdienst Basel-Land, which means foreigners services. This was initially started in 1960s when Canton Basel-Land realized we had problem, we are facing problem in the society and also in the labor market to integrate them into the labor market. So we need help. We need the migrants. They need help. So therefore, they started this ILD. I'm proud to say that I currently serve as a board member of ILD, strategic advisor in the organization for supporting or optimizing the labor market integration. What they offer is language and qualification program. And early childhood support, so the mothers can leave their children at offices or these play kindergarten, and then they can go to the work. And we also provide information and counseling session, in particularly related to the job. We use interpreters, mostly about 60 different languages we have right now. And as I already mentioned, that we collaborate and coordinate with the federal government and the canton municipalities and the partner organizations to optimize this process. If you would like to know more about how this function, this Ausländerinnen's Basel-Land for the migrants, not for the refugees, I can give you some more perspective. After the presentation, you can communicate with me because we don't have time to go through all of it. The next NGO called Zurechke or Nordwestschweiz, that means in Swiss German, that means to arrive and to manage adequately. It was found 2019 to support refugees, particularly to ease their labor integration in Basel-Land. And I was also involved. I was part of the program developer and the concept developer in these organizations. We have developed concept and programs that matches with the SEM integration agenda and also cantonal integration programs. And also our cantonal, regulations and rules. We have to actually, establish about 10 different programs, and 6 have been accepted for the labor integration. And we have been implementing these programs for the last 5 to 6 years very successfully, working together with the Gemeinden, that means communities and cities, to get the asylum seekers into the job market as much as and as effective as possible. The final part of the presentation, or the part of the presentation, is that the gastronomy sector, particularly in Basel region of Basel, along with also the hospitality sector, they have actually they are facing shortage of talents, personnel shortage, because Swiss they don't want to work in the gastronomy sector anymore. And so this lead to many restaurants closing down in the region in the past few years. To tackle this while supporting the refugees, in collaboration with the canton, I initiated a project. We are launching this project called Gastro-Einstieg at a historical restaurant in Basel-Land. So therefore, the people can get into the job market, and also the gastronomy sector can, reduce their problems in terms of personnel shortage. Throughout this initiative, we aim to achieve a win-win situation for the economy, for the migrants, and also for the municipalities and the canton. The Gastro-Einstieg project main focus is to help participants to understand Swiss gastronomy, also interest and motivation, creating the interest and motivation, spark the motivational aspect for the profession, and also give them the skills needed to enter the industry. Participants receive language training, theoretical coaching, through role plays and videos and practical exercises because they don't speak most often German, even if they do, very basic. So theory is very difficult. So we came up with this, different videos that they can understand and they can get the idea how this works. And on the other hand, hands-on practical training in the premium restaurant. Throughout this program, we also connect participant directly with the labor market to so that the restaurants can actually get touching to the future employees or the candidates directly. So we are creating a platform to connect the participant and the labor market. Oh, I'm done. Okay, our goal is to support actually each participant until they are fully integrated into the restaurant and able to build long-term stable employment. Just to summarize, labor market integration has a long history. Cities face ongoing challenges in bringing diverse migrants into the labor market, but at the end, we also try to create a win-win situation for everybody. If you would like to have more questions or anything else in details, there's my address, and you can always communicate with me. Thank you.
Dusza, bardzo dziękujemy.
Thank you so much, Tusha, for your presentation. We don't have any questions. However, as I listened, I came up with a question myself. You talked about all these measures, all these activities, which are based on coordinating the actions of many partners. You talked about integrating migrants into the labor market, and you said it's not possible without the collaboration of the federal government, local authorities, local businesses. I hope you can hear me.
Where can I see the translation, please? Yeah.
Nie mam tu. Hello, this is the interpreter. Can you hear me? I'm on the English channel. I'm on the English channel.
Dusza, czy teraz słychać mnie po angielsku?
Can you hear us now?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I'm on the English channel.
It's English.
English channel. Okay.
But can you hear me now? I'm on the English channel.
In English to make it shorter.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about coordination of central level, the federal government, local level, cantons and Gemeinde municipalities, but also employers, employees, and local community. And the question is, who is the initiator of these actions? Who takes the leading role? Who coordinates?
Okay.
One more question. What is the role of a business community? Are they looking forward to get involved in migrant integration, or do you have to really look for companies willing to get involved in these programs?
Yeah.
Zadałem pytanie do Duszy, czy w tych działaniach dotyczących integracji migrantów na rynku pracy, opartych o współpracę wielu partnerów. Kto jest tym partnerem inicjującym te działania? Kto koordynuje te działania?
This question is now being repeated. It's about who coordinates these activities, which involve so many levels, the federal government, the cantons, and the cities. And do you have to encourage businesses to take an active role? Are they willing?
Actually, the NGOs and MPOs, they are playing the key role to coordinate and connect the migrants to the labor market, and the cities and the canton. Of course, the canton have their policies, and the Gemeinde have to implement. So the NGOs are working together with the Gemeinden to actually establish the core of the whole network system because also there's also competition between the NGOs that whoever doing is the most job they will be also provided by with more number of asylum seekers or the refugees. So there's a continuous improvement in terms of how they work together. And to your next question, what was your next question? Sorry, I can't remember anymore.
The role of the business community, the role of companies.
Okay, I got it. So the role of business communities is shifting actually. At the beginning, maybe in 60s and 70s, even 2000, it was difficult to get the migrants into the job market. But now the companies and the employers are becoming more and more open and adapt, very going in the adjustment phase. One side they have to adjust towards the migrants, and the migrant has to adjust towards the labor market. The problem is that many of the sectors here in Switzerland, we face shortage of talents, not in the middle level sectors. Actually, the high level sectors, some engineers, doctors, and so on, and also on the bottom level, like low skilled work. So therefore, the employees are obliged to actually be open to also be patient with the migrants to get them, train them, and get them in the labor market. Yes. It's shifting, and they see there's a win-win situation that we are creating, but it's a long-term, process and a long-standing process. Yeah.
Dusza, bardzo dziękujemy za udział w dzisiejszym seminarium, za Twoją obecność, przygotowanie bardzo
Thank you
potrzebnej
so
nam,
much,
ciekawej prezentacji.
Tusa, for
Dziękuję
your
Tobie za udział.
extremely
Chciałbym w następnym
interesting
momencie powiedzieć, że
presentation.
przechodzimy już do ostatniego
Ladies
punktu.
and gentlemen, we have to
Chcielibyśmy
move to
prosić
the
pana Tomasza
final
Podkańskiego,
point of our
dyrektora Biura
agenda.
Związku Miast
We would
Polskich,
like to invite
o
Tomasz
podsumowanie, ale
Podkański,
nim oddam
the
mu
Deputy
głos,
Director
to
of the
jeszcze chciałbym
Office
zwrócić
of
Państwa uwagę
the
na
APC.
naszą jedną prośbę,
I will
którą
give
macie
him the
na
floor
czacie,
so that
o
he
to,
can sum
żebyście
up this
Państwo
meeting for
wypełnili
us.
ankietę ewaluacyjną.
I would like,
Nam bardzo
I
zależy
have
na
one
Państwa
request to
opiniach.
you. If you
To
could fill
już
out an
kolejny
evaluation
EPL,
survey.
ale
We
ciągle się
really want
czegoś
to learn
uczymy
what your
i Państwa opinie
opinion
są dla nas
is.
bardzo
This is
ważne.
another
I
stage
jeszcze jedna krótka informacja.
of our
Nasze
program, but
wszystkie
we
seminaria są
are
zawieszane na
committed
stronach
to
Związku Miast
continuous
Polskich.
learning,
Także
and
każdy
we
z Państwa
really
może
value your
sięgnąć do poprzednich
input.
seminariów i
We
jest to
also
przypadek, ale mniej więcej
we also publish all
dokładnie
the
rok
previous
temu, w
seminars
październiku
at
ubiegłego
the
roku,
website of the
mieliśmy też
APC. So if
seminarium
you're interested,
rozwoju
you
lokalnego
can look
na temat
them
migracji.
up. Almost
Także
1 year
warto
ago,
porównać te informacje,
exactly
tam też jest
in
bardzo ciekawych,
October, we
wiele
had a
informacji.
seminar on
Rok temu to są
local
rzeczy nadal
development, and it
aktualne,
was focused
ale to też
on
pokazuje, że
migration. That is
kwestia
no
imigrantów
coincidence,
jest
because this
ważna dla
issue is
polskich
very
samorządów
topical
i na pewno
still
wiele
and
możemy
very
się uczyć
important
od naszych
for
partnerów
Polish
dzisiaj, od
LGUs.
partnerów ze
We can
Szwajcarii.
certainly draw from our partners,
Także
from our
zachęcam
Swiss
do
partners
skorzystania także z
today.
tej możliwości
I
i
encourage you
powtórzenia
to
sobie tej
make use
wiedzy,
of
tych
that
informacji,
opportunity
którą
to
Państwo
revise
dzisiaj
that
usłyszeliście.
knowledge,
Niedługo
to
ta
consolidate the knowledge you
prezentacje
heard
będą
today.
zawieszone na
And soon
stronie
we
Związku
will
Miast Polskich,
post
a ja w tym momencie już
today's
oddaję głos i
presentations
proszę o
at the
podsumowanie
APC
pana doktora Tomasza
website, and I
Podkańskiego.
hand over to Deputy
Dzień dobry
Director,
Państwu.
Mr. Tomasz
Tomasz
Podkański.
Podkański, zastępca
Ladies
dyrektora
and
Biura
gentlemen, good
Związku Miast
afternoon.
Polskich
My name
i
is Tomasz
kierownik tego
Podkański. I am the
programu.
Deputy
Ogromnie
Director of the
dziękuję
APC office and the
wszystkim
manager
osobom,
of this
które
program.
występowały
Thank you
dzisiaj i
to
to moje
all the
podsumowanie
speakers we
jest
had
zarówno jakby
today.
skierowane do
My sum
uczestników
up is
polskich.
directed to
Postaram
our
się
Polish participants also.
wypunktować autorsko
I will do
najciekawsze
my
elementy,
best to
które mają
present my
znaczenie
own
dla
list of
naszej
the most
sytuacji,
important
jak i jest
elements
również formą
that
takiego
are
feedbacku
relevant
dla
to
naszych
our Polish
szwajcarskich
situation.
przyjaciół,
This is also a form of
jak
feedback
to, o
for
czym
our
mówili,
Swiss friends,
ma się do polskiej
so
rzeczywistości.
that they can see how
Rozpocznę
this
od
relates to
ogromnych
Polish
podziękowań
reality. Let me start with a
dla
big thank you
Niny Dausz i
to
zespołu
Nina
ENCO
Dausch and the
i
whole ENCO
moderatora
team,
Tomka
and
Kaisera
to
za
our moderator
doskonałe
Tomek
przygotowanie
Kaiser.
programu, a z
Thank you
kolei
for
naszym prelegentom za to, że tak
preparing
dobrze
this
się
program
uzupełniali
so
wasze
perfectly, and I would like to thank our speakers for complementing one another. Your presentations were extremely coherent, and you provided examples of solutions which all of you at some level discussed. So you showed the national, the federal level, then the Gemeinde, the municipal level, and then the practical aspect of the private sector, all in terms of integrating migrants with the labor market. Our Swiss-Polish cooperation program and the city development program shows us how much we have in common. We see that Swiss and Polish cities operate in very similar conditions. Although we have our formal differences, you are a federal state, we are not. However, we do have regions, and we do have powiats, districts. We share similar programs and solutions. The resemblance is striking, which paves the ground for fruitful cooperation in the future. We also have many similarities between Poland and Switzerland. As Mark Engler said, advisory to the State Secretary for Migration, we have a majority of economic migrants. However, the group of asylum seekers is growing. Switzerland has the advantage that for many years you've had an official migration policy. You keep working on that migration policy. You're working on improving it, but everyone knows it and is implementing it in Switzerland. In Poland, we haven't had such an official policy for many years. In practice, we had some unofficial, unnamed policies that were being implemented. The practical outcome is that we have more than 2 million migrants. We already have a draft of a Polish migration policy. I can see that our draft policy is very similar in its goals, in its principles, in its tools to the laws and practices employed in Switzerland, which is a very positive. Our policy focuses on faster decisions, which is a similarity to Switzerland. We don't want migrants, asylum seekers, to waste time. We want them to embark on the integration process as soon as possible, or transfer to a different country where they can initiate such a process. I would like to express my gratitude to Mark Engler for his wonderful presentation on the Swiss system. Then all the speakers that followed discussed the practical aspects of how that system functions in Switzerland. In Poland, integration is the task of the state, that is the government. These tasks are entrusted to communes, to municipalities, and to powiats, districts. Municipalities focus on social integration and powiats on labor market integration. And this middle level, the regions or voivodeships don't really play a role here. Natasha Pitet, our second speaker, started by discussing the perfect practical definition of integration. She said that integration is no accident. It's a process which is based on mutual respect and which aims at economic, social, and linguistic inclusion. It requires the participation of migrants and members of the local communities. This is also enshrined in the Polish migration policy. We just need to ensure it is implemented in practice. Swiss cantons cooperate with municipalities, and they take on the majority of tasks connected with implementing this policy. And Natasza Pitet and the next two speakers pointed to one element which is still missing in Poland. They pointed to the fact that, on the one hand, in the organizational structures of the cantons and municipalities, there are specialized units responsible for integration. In Poland, it's an additional task entrusted to existing units. In Polish local government units at the level of municipalities and districts, we need to assign specific funds to that, and that's why we opted for this solution. The integration unit in Biel has 10 members of staff. In Poland, if we have such units, we have fewer members of staff per 50,000 residents of Polish cities. I recently visited Switzerland on a study visit, and what I saw personally is creating a network of cooperation between local governments and NGOs, a network of cooperation. Also, businesses are involved and specialized government institutions. LGUs have their clear policies and structures, and their operations relies on cooperating with other institutions and actively promotes such cooperation. So it's an active stakeholder, not just provides the financing, but encourages, facilitates contact between local communities, migrants, families, and other participants. What I also noted during the study visit was that cooperation of institutions within municipalities and cantons is a permanent fixture of this system. There was a question, how do you cooperate with one another? Often in their scope of responsibility, officials are entrusted with the task of specific cooperation with other institutions, for example, on social policy. So this is institutionalized, it's part of their scope of activity, scope of responsibility. Madam Tina Babot from Basel reminded us of what the first speaker, Mr. Mark Engler, said, that municipal integration programs have the same goals and principles across all cantons. So there's a coherent state-federal policy at the top, and this trickles down to the same standards and goals. However, the manner of implementation is left to the cantons and the municipalities, so they can take up local initiative. The system is not over-regulated, and that's a very important lesson from Poland, for Poland. Tina Babot pointed to an absolutely key aspect of the welcome culture, a culture of establishing contact with immigrant communities. She talked about welcoming, about the letter from the mayor, about diagnosing different integration needs, different forms of support and aid. Basel is a city of 200,000 residents. You have these community centers which enable contacts with migrants and also with local residents. She also talked about centers for coordinating volunteers. that is drawing from the resources vested in local communities. In Poland, we have large resources of this sources, where we just don't galvanize it sufficiently as LGUs. Then the specific initiatives, Parliament of Women Migrants, socialization programs for families, for adults, especially for men. We know that men in their prime, young men, are often lonely, frustrated, and they're the source of problems. So this need has been recognized, and there's an integration program for adults. And then bridge builders, another important voluntary work-based program for companions, for support for families with children. Then Madam Tina Babot said that there's a program protecting against discrimination. So discrimination is recognized as a problem by the state, and we have local policies in cities, and counteracting discrimination is a priority. In Poland, we have a separation of the state and religion, and the same rule applies in Switzerland. No single religion is dominant in Switzerland, contrary to Poland. Despite this separation of the state and religion, local policies connected with integrating migrants do not ignore the religious needs of migrants. These religious needs are also taken into account. As you recall, we had programs connected with religion. Visit a different religion. Children at schools can learn about different religions. We also have a religious diversity week. It's not pushed outside to the sidelines. It's an active part of local policies. Thank you very much for these examples. And then Madam Dushanti Senior, a big thank you for all of these practical examples. Thank you for discussing this pilot program. Ladies and gentlemen, please note that these projects are being implemented so that the public authorities with their NGO partners can diagnose a problem. They can define it, give it a name. For example, shortage of qualified workers in the hospitality industry. Then the NGO discussed by Madam Dushanti prepared a pilot project for preparing qualified employees for restaurants, and she listed concrete actions that had been taken. And then Madam Dushanti's answer to the question asked by Tomasz Kaiser, our moderator, about who initiates these relations between the public federal government, the canton, and the municipality, and businesses, employers, and NGOs. Madam Dushanti said that NGOs are the initiators here. But I think that Madam Dushanti emphasized this important role of NGOs. However, I think that the state is open to this cooperation at all three levels. It promotes such cooperation. It ensures the funding for that. So the state creates space for the actions of NGOs. And so this moderating role of government institutions is very important. We're developing it in Poland, but we have a lot of work ahead of us. Thank you for for this very interesting and coherent presentation of Swiss experience in managing the integration of migrants in terms of social and economic integration. Thank you. I hand over back to Tomek. Thank you very much, Tomasz, for this wonderful summary. I would like to thank everyone who helped this seminar happen. I would like to thank our partners from Switzerland. A big thank you to Nina Dausch, all of our wonderful panelists, and everyone who, on behalf of the ABC, helped us out with our technical aspects. I would like to thank our sign language and Polish English interpreters. Ladies and gentlemen, I would already like to invite you to the next seminars of the Local Development Forum, where we will discuss topics important to Polish cities, and we will invite international experts. Thank you and see you in the upcoming webinars.